And here we go. Hello, hello, welcome. If you're just joining in, welcome, welcome. Hope everybody's having a day. Having the day that they deserve, whether good or bad. That's what they call me. They call me Mr. Multiverse Wide. I believe in Spider-Man. Don't you know? Sorry, I'm just getting the live stream set up, and then we should be good to take on our first guest. All right, let's bring up a guest. Hope my audio is doing okay. What have I done today? I spent all day writing. All day. Rixes, how's it going?
Yo.
What do you believe in?
I believe in God.
All right, which one?
What do you mean? Like, I believe in one God, like a monotheistic. But I don't
Okay,
have
but like,
a...
are you Muslim? Are you Christian? Are you like just generically deist? Are you Baha'i? Like,
Yeah, I'm deist. I was raised Catholic, but I don't associate with any sect of religion.
do you think that Jesus rose from the dead?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so why
No,
should I believe
don't
what you
think so.
believe?
Well, because why do you think that there's like no creator whatsoever?
Well, it just doesn't seem to be like a necessary part of an explanation.
What? So you think that the universe is like came out of nothing?
I'm not sure if the universe had a beginning.
You don't think so?
Well, I don't know. I kind of lean away from I kind of lean towards the universe not having a beginning, but maybe like 60-40.
But do you think that it has like a creator? No, you
No, I
don't because
don't.
you're atheist. That's crazy, man. Like,
But like, why should I believe that?
well, like it's too structured. There's too much structure.
In what way?
Every- Well, like in the same way that like we program computers and stuff, you know, um, it seems like it has like like you know like it's way too like organized for it to be chaotic and random.
Are do you think the universe is like wildly organized? Because there's like stuff crashing into each other all the time, and like supernovas happening, and like all sorts of crazy things happening all the time.
That's not chaotic though. That's
How?
like
Well,
okay,
then
like
what? Then what counts as chaotic?
well, it's just like a human like outview because of our limited perception. But like okay, like mathematics, right? Like mathematics has rules and stuff.
Yeah.
Like right, like chemistry has rules. Everything has like an order, like the seasons, you know, the seasons are like timely organized.
Not every planet has seasons.
Well, no, well, the one that we're on, and especially Earth, like, you know, like all of the out of like all of the possibilities of life being able to happen, all the perfect conditions were met for it to happen here.
If they weren't
You
met
know,
here, then there just would have been no life here. They would have been somewhere
exactly,
else.
but exactly that's what I'm saying. So that's like way too structured. You
How?
know what I
Wait.
mean?
Do you think it's? Do you think it's like? Do you think that there's a purpose when like somebody wins the lottery?
Is there a purpose when somebody wins the lottery?
Yeah, because like somebody has to win the lottery, right? Well, that's not technically true,
Right,
but suppose that like typically somebody will win the lottery. The fact that it's
right.
any one particular person doesn't have a reason.
But it was structured that way.
I don't know what that means.
Like somebody created the game so that it functions in that way. So
Can you hear me all
that
right?
out of
It
a
just
thousand
TikTok's being
people,
dumb and it's saying that my connection is bad. Never mind, we're good. My point is that there are a lot of planets, like way more planets than you can even imagine. And so one of them was going to have life.
Right.
It just happened to be Earth.
Well, what if it's just too perfect though? It's like too
But
perfect.
which part is perfect?
The fact that like all the seasons work like so like well
There
timed.
aren't seasons on most. Well, not probably, perhaps not most, but there aren't seasons on many planets.
And how do we know there's life there too though?
Where?
In other planets,
Where?
bacteria and all that stuff.
Where? Which planets?
Let's say Mars, right? Didn't they find like bacteria on Mars or whatever?
No.
Yeah, they
At least
found they
not. At
found
least
some.
not yet. No.
They did. I remember seeing that like a while back ago. They found some
Pretty sure
kind
you're
of
wrong about that.
organism. So you think there's no life anywhere else?
No, I think that
You
there
think we're the
probably
only
is life
thing?
somewhere else. I just don't think it's very common.
So do you believe like evolution?
Yeah, do you?
Yeah, I do, and that's what makes me think like if evolution is real, then doesn't that mean that life would constantly keep evolving over billions of years to a
It is.
degree?
Yeah, it is.
So who's to say there's not an intelligence that evolved, to a degree that's, capable of it creating a structured and organized environment?
Then it's not the creator of the universe because it would have been in the universe.
Well, that's just our perception because like, that's our limited perception of what we perceive to be life. Like, like
Wait, what are you talking
uh
about? If something evolved in our universe, then it couldn't have been the creator of our universe.
but we don't have a full understanding of the universe. What if something can
I
evolve
never said that
outside
we
of it?
did. If something, I mean, if you're saying that there's something evolved outside of it that created our universe, perhaps, but I wouldn't call that God if it evolved, right? Evolution requires birth, it requires death, it requires limited power, it requires limited knowledge. It just seems like it's an animal that's very sophisticated.
Well, who's to say that's not God?
Well, typically when I'm talking about God, I'm talking about some sort of being that is immaterial and responsible for creating our universe. It just doesn't sound like you're referring to the same thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Our perception of life is too limited, so that like basically there could be a life
This
form out
isn't a
there.
perception issue. It's a
So you
definition
don't
issue.
think
Do you think that God
you,
is like something that was born, and something that can die?
I wouldn't be able to comprehend it because it's beyond my limited perception.
Why do you believe in something that you don't know anything about?
What do you mean? That's how
Well,
all of
it
this.
doesn't it
That's how
doesn't seem like you
science
know
was
anything.
created.
It doesn't seem like you know anything about this God, so I believe it's true.
Well, that's how science was created.
I don't think
Nobody
that
knew
you're
what
understanding
gravity
my
was
question.
because if you want to think about this scientifically, you have to form some kind of basis for something if you want to try to explain it, right?
So, prior to 1697 or so, if you believed in gravity, you would have been unjustified in doing so.
Right.
Because nobody had even like defined what gravity was. Nobody had any idea. Like the word gravity just didn't even mean anything yet.
Right, right.
If what you're
We still don't
saying,
right.
if what you're saying, thank you. If what you're saying is that like you believe in something that you can't that you don't know anything about, that just seems like you're believing in nothing.
So do you believe in gravity?
I mean, it's empirically testable, so yeah, sure.
No, we fully don't understand it yet. We only know the basics.
What do you mean no? It's empirically testable.
We only know the basics. We don't
Hey,
fully understand it.
Rexres, what shape is the Earth?
Well, some say it would be a circle, but it's not really a full circle. It's more like an egg shape.
Okay, just double checking. So, gravity is real because we can test it and verify that it's like a real thing. We can, do controlled experiments. I don't see what the issue is.
But we only understand, what I'm saying is we only understand it on a surface level. We don't really know the full mechanics.
Why
Like,
do you think
where
that
does,
that's true?
well, because where does gravity come from?
From mass, momentum, energy, and stress.
Okay, in order for mass to exist, there has to be something that that reflects it, right? Like
I don't know
You
what that
know,
question means.
like mass has to push down on something in order for it to exist.
Mass doesn't have to push down on something in order to exist.
Yes, it does. Or otherwise, how
What do you
can you
think mass
quantify it?
is?
How can you quantify math without something to
How do we quantify mass?
yeah,
Essentially, we can just count the number of particles in something.
exactly. So the
There's no
particles
pushing involved.
so the particles are the reason why mass exists at all.
Well, particles are the things that have mass.
Right. That's what gives it its definition. So
No. The
basically,
the definition of mass is not is
not
doesn't come
definition
from
like a
particles.
word definition, but I'm saying mass, we can literally experience mass because we can see it react against something that's tangible.
I don't know what you mean by react against something. We can measure mass,
That's what I mean. We can measure it because
and
it's
we can measure
tangible to
gravity.
something. Right, right. But okay, we don't fully understand it though. Like, okay, like basically what I'm
We
saying
don't
is
fully understand
the
anything. That
earth
doesn't mean that
is
we don't understand it pretty well.
the earth is being like gravity exists because supposedly the earth is being pushed down, right?
No, the Earth is not being
Like
pushed
like
down.
the trampoline thing where you put a ball in a trampoline and everything gravitates down towards that
Yeah,
center
that's
of
just an
mass.
analogy. It's not like a true description of what's actually happening.
So what's the true description of what's actually happening?
The simplest description is that masses attract other masses.
But what? Why?
In order to understand that, you have to learn some differential geometry.
Right, right. So we only understand a surface level
No,
of
no,
it.
no. I understand differential geometry. I'm saying that I wouldn't be able to give you a satisfying explanation unless you understood differential geometry.
So do you think that the that outer space has mass?
There's stuff with mass in space.
No, but outer space as a whole, like the black film that is outer space. Like what is
It's
the
hard to
Earth?
say if that's even a thing.
Like what's weighing down? What's causing gravity on Earth? Basically, like
Earth is causing gravity on Earth.
against itself.
No, Earth is causing the gravity that makes other things fall to it.
Earth is causing the gravity that makes
Like,
other
when
things
I
fall
drop
to it.
this fidget cube, that's the Earth doing it.
Why? Because it has a center of mass in the middle, or what?
Because the Earth is heavy.
Okay, well, what makes it heavy is what I'm saying.
It has lots of mass.
Right, right. It has lots of mass. Okay, it has
Yes.
lots of mass, right? But what I'm
So,
saying is,
look, it sounds like you're very, very skeptical. It sounds like the reason why you're going through all of this effort to try to say, oh, well, we don't actually know what gravity is and yet you believe in it, is just because you're recognizing that your own belief system in this God that you can't even define, let alone describe, is kind of absurd.
it's not observed.
Absurd, not observed.
It's not absurd. Like okay, like what about the fact that you can't understand atheism either? You can't
I,
describe it, you can't
sure I can.
quantify it.
Atheism is the
How?
state of mind of lack of belief in a God.
Yeah, I know you can't, but you can't understand why you don't believe in a God.
I literally can. I can give you reasons.
Why is that? Why?
Yeah,
Tell me why. Tell me
so
why it's possible for the universe.
So I have a set of priors, and one of those priors is that when I encounter a mind, that mind is always attached to a body. And so I have high confidence that all minds are attached to bodies. Similarly, when I encounter an effect that has a cause, those causes have always been physical causes. So I have high priors, or good justification to believe that all effects are caused by physical causes. Furthermore, there's mounting evidence that the universe didn't have a beginning. This is hotly debated amongst cosmologists, and if the universe doesn't have a beginning, then there's no room for a god to create it. Furthermore, the notion of something that exists outside of space and time seems a little bit absurd, because as far as I'm concerned, what it means to exist is to be at a place at a time. Finally, the notion of something that knows everything seems to have some issues, because the notion of the set of all knowledge has some issues itself. It doesn't seem like it's super plausible to actually consider something that knows all possible things. It seems like a contradiction in terms. So there's 5 reasons. Is that good enough?
Well, there's a flaw to that theory because did you hear about
None of
dark
that was
energy?
theory. Those were explanations.
Did you hear about dark energy?
You probably heard about it from me.
You heard about it, right?
Yes.
So have you heard that that they found that it's losing its elasticity?
It's not elastic, you're misunderstanding, but you probably heard that fact that it's getting weaker. You probably heard that from my video.
Mm, well,
Because my
anyways,
video went viral on that topic, and it's the only video that did.
I actually heard it from the actual guys that gave
Which one? Who?
the it was like some black dude, but
Are you talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson?
nah, man, it was like the guys that were studying it.
You don't know his name?
Nah, I just watched the video. But anyways, um, it's losing
Wait, are you talking about the guy
its.
that was talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I don't know who he was, bro. I don't know who he was.
Okay.
But anyways, it's getting weaker, right?
Yeah. And that is evidence that the universe has always existed.
How is that evidence that it's always existed if it's getting
Well,
weaker?
if it wasn't getting weaker, then we would have evidence that the universe had a beginning, because the universe would be expanding forever, which would mean that at some point in time it was much, much smaller. And so the fact that it's not constant, that it is changing with time, is evidence that it didn't have a beginning.
So what do you think is just gonna die and then it start all over again?
Yeah, at least seems plausible. Yeah.
That doesn't sound like it doesn't have. That sounds like it has a very real ending to it.
No, if it starts over again, it's not actually an end. Right?
I mean, you pass away and then you have kids.
That's not the
So
same
does
as
that mean that
starting
you
over
never
again.
passed away at all?
That's not the same as starting over again.
Well, that's exactly what's gonna happen to the universe.
No, the universe will repeat itself over and over again. If it is indeed cyclic, that's what would happen. It would repeat itself.
That doesn't make sense at all, man.
Sorry. Science is hard sometimes.
That's not science. That's
It is.
it's just you trying to explain how if an infinite universe is finite and infinite at the same time. I mean, you
Who
could
said
say
who said it's finite?
you just said it's going to eventually end and start all over again.
Yeah, so it's expanding. It'll recollapse down to a small point, and then it'll re-expand again. There's no end.
That's not that wouldn't be this universe then. It would be a completely brand new thing.
Why? Just because it got smaller and then got bigger again? Why would that make it a new thing?
It's gonna be the exact same way that it was
It could
before.
be. Yeah.
But it could be exactly. You said it. It could be. We're not.
I mean,
100% sure.
regardless, it means that if our universe is cyclic like this, it does mean that our universe was caused by something prior to it, some other universe, which was caused by another universe that was prior to it. So the universe, the whole thing, has always existed.
Right. What is beyond the black hole?
I don't know what that question means.
Like, do we know what's on the other side of a black hole?
There isn't another side.
How do we know that?
Black holes only have one side. They're like, it's a sphere. There's not another side.
How do we know that?
A black hole is a sphere. What other side is there? That's like asking what's on the other side of a basketball.
It could cause like a tear into, create like maybe there's something else on the other side. Maybe.
Why would anybody believe that?
I don't know, because I mean, what would be the mechanics of this universe that you're talking about that's infinite? It needs to have some form of it needs to have some form of mechanism through which it reproduces itself, right?
Why?
Well, that's what you're telling me.
No, I'm just saying it expands and
it would just
collapses
blow
and
up.
expands and collapses and expands and collapses over and over again.
How can it expand and collapse over and over again?
What do you mean how? I mean, like, if the equations say that that's what happens, then that's is a reasonable thing to think that happens.
There's not a single piece of infinite energy like that we know of.
What infinite energy are you talking about?
Something that's able to recreate itself from like nothing. If it collapses, how can it rebuild itself?
Pressure bouncing off of a
Pressure
hard
is a
core.
form of energy.
Pressure is not a form of energy. It's force divided by
Yes, it
area.
is.
It's literally not.
What is pressure then?
It's force divided by area.
Force. And what is force? Is it not a energy?
Force is what causes change in motion.
And what is motion? It's an energy.
And motion isn't energy either. Motion is change in position.
Motion literally requires energy. Otherwise, you can't do anything.
There is energy associated with motion, but pressure isn't motion.
Right.
Force isn't motion. These are all different things. That's like saying speed and energy are the same thing. They're not. They're different things.
It requires energy. You're just
Yeah,
using
sure.
like.
I mean,
Right,
like
exactly.
the
It
whole
requires
yeah, but energy is conserved, so there's no issue.
Right. So you think that the universe is just this
Bouncing.
random
Yeah.
thing that happens, right? On its
No.
own.
Why would I? Where did you get that conclusion?
Well, you just said it expands and collapses without no probable cause.
No, the
Without
cause is the previous universe.
Right. So without any form of like it just doesn't make sense to me, man. I don't know. Like
I mean, that sounds like a you problem, though, not like a problem with
is
the
it
model.
so the universe is not alive?
No, I don't think it is.
What would make you think that, man?
Why would I think the universe is alive? It seems like if you think the universe is alive, it seems like the burden's on you in order to show that.
Right. But I didn't say the universe is alive. I'm asking you.
You asked the question, and I said no. I don't think that's true.
Right. I don't know, man. I don't know.
And
I
no,
don't know. What about simulation theory? What's your take on that?
I don't think that there's any reason to believe it's true.
You don't think so?
No,
You don't
I don't
think that there
think
could be
that it
an
makes
intelligence?
predictions. I don't think you can test it.
So you don't think that there could be an intelligence out there that is capable of creating a highly advanced simulation where everything
It
is
might
like,
be in principle possible. That doesn't give you a good reason to believe it's true, though.
man, I don't know. Shit. I guess you got me on that one, man. I guess you got me on that one. I'm not gonna say that like, you guys are wrong or anything or tried, but
Who's you guys?
like atheists and stuff,
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, because sometimes I think about these questions too, but it's just hard for me to wrap my head around,
Well, there's
like,
a fix for that, by the way.
what?
Go to school and learn physics.
I mean, yeah, dude, like, okay, science and stuff and physics and all that stuff, yeah, that's cool, but like, that's not gonna give you an answer, man. Because like I said, that's just like
you at least won't struggle to understand these things.
I mean, I can learn about thermodynamics and all that shit, but like, it's not gonna give me an answer. Like, it's just surface level stuff, like, because
Thermodynamics
it's
is not
only
surface level stuff. And the fact that you
it's
think
stuff
that makes me think that you don't know what thermodynamics is.
it's just stuff that we can like, quantify, but like
It's
beyond
better
that,
it's
we're
better
not
than not
capable.
it's better than not knowing
of-
anything.
Nobody said that it isn't, but like beyond that, we're not capable of doing anything but like creating theories and stuff.
Well, no, I mean, we can test
can't.
those theories. That's the whole business of the science.
Right. But like, as far as like, where does the organization and structure come from? We can't
Yeah,
prove
if
where
you
it
went to
comes
school and
from.
learned physics, you'd see that it's not nearly as organized as you think.
It looks actually it looks random and chaotic to us, but it never really is.
So then why do you think that it is? Why do you think that it is organized if it looks random and chaotic?
Based on the fact that it looks that way to us, but it never truly is.
Can you
Like
prove that it's
everything
not
has
then? It doesn't. It
everything
doesn't.
has an
It
action
looks.
and reaction.
It looks chaotic. Physics says it's chaotic, and yet you're still claiming that it's not actually chaotic. So can you prove that?
Well, physics doesn't say it's chaotic.
It absolutely does.
In what way? How? Okay, give me
Literally
one example.
literally every single gravitational interaction except a gravitational interaction between only two bodies is chaotic. In fact, this was the
Okay,
birth of chaos theory.
okay,
Studying
it's exact.
it's
It's
that's the name of
theory,
a
bro.
it's just the
It's
name of a field.
theory.
It's not this isn't like a theory and that it's just the name of a field.
It's literally says theory, bro. It's
It's
not. You
the
can't
name of the
prove it. You
field.
can't.
It's
You can't measure it, man. You can't measure it.
oh my
It's just a
god, you are a
theory.
lost.
You could. You
You
could.
know,
You could
do,
create a
do you know
freaking.
it's just a name. It's not like a scientific theory. It's like a math thing.
Exactly. It's just an equation. You can't measure it. You
It's
can
literally
only.
not an equation. It's a
You
field of
can only. You can
mathematics.
only. You can only
It's a
express it
field of
through.
mathematics.
It's a mathematical probability. You can't
It's
measure
it's
it.
not that okay. You should go look up what chaos theory is because it's a field of mathematics.
And what does it do?
It
Does it?
describes chaotic behavior.
Can you measure it? Can you measure
Yes,
that
you can
chaotic
observe
behavior?
it. You can see it happening in the universe.
You can't see it happening in the universe. What are
Literally,
you
you
talking about?
can. What do you think weather is?
Weather.
Weather is well described by chaos theory.
What? Weather is not. I don't think that has to do anything with chaos theory,
It
man.
absolutely does.
Those are freaking those are more like chemical. That's where you get into more like chemical reactions and stuff, man.
Weather, the unpredictable nature of weather, is perfectly well explained by dynamical systems and chaos theory.
Weather is not chaotic at all. I don't know where you got that from.
Well, then why can't meteorologists predict the weather if it's not chaotic?
They do it all the time.
They're wrong more than 50% of the time if you go out more than 7 days.
Exactly.
So
If
they
it was
can't predict the
chaotic,
weather more than 7 days in advance.
That's because it all depends on the speed and all that stuff.
It's because
man.
it's chaotic.
And the wind. Just because
Yes,
we don't
which is
understand it
chaotic.
doesn't make it chaotic.
Chaos means something very specific. Seriously, you're talking out your ass here. You should just go look up what these words
You
mean.
know, they're developing weather systems that are way more accurate.
Of course they
at
are. Yeah,
detecting
so
weather.
you should just go look up what these words mean before you make yourself look like more of a fool.
Well, I'm trying to learn here, man.
Well,
That's
then
why I'm
why?
asking you
If you're trying to
questions.
learn, you shouldn't be telling me no, you're wrong. I'm happy to teach you things, but not if you're going to say no, you're wrong. This thing that you know about, you're wrong about.
I never said you're wrong. I said
I told
I'm
you
just
that weather is
offering-
chaotic, and you said no, it's not.
I didn't say no, it's not. I said just because it's chaotic and we don't understand
You
it
didn't
quite
say that.
fully
You didn't say
yet,
just because it's
doesn't make
chaotic.
it
You didn't say
chaotic.
that.
No, I think you misunderstood
You don't know what
me.
chaotic means. That's the trouble.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree, man.
This is a I'm agreeing, and you should go read what chaos is.
Okay, give me a definition of chaos.
A dynamical system. Chaos is an adjective, right? So I'm going to describe the thing that it describes. A chaotic system would be a dynamical system that is that depends non-smoothly on the initial conditions.
That depends not smoothly on this and what?
On the initial conditions.
So it's random, right?
No, not random. It is determined. It's just chaotic.
If it's determined, it's not chaotic. What are you talking
Again,
about?
you should learn what
What do you
chaos
mean?
is.
The fact that we can observe it doesn't means that it's not chaotic in its essence.
No, that's just not what chaos means.
If you can like determine that it's chaotic, that makes it's paradoxical, man.
No, it's not. Chaotic literally just means that you cannot, like, a consequence of the definition that I gave you is that you cannot, with arbitrary precision, you cannot, with any degree of precision, measure or predict outcomes unless you have arbitrary precision on your initial conditions. Which means
Exactly.
that because we can't measure anything perfectly, it means that things will be always unpredictable.
Exactly, because we can't
That's what
measure it
chaos
to
is,
its
but
full
it's still
extent.
deterministic.
It means that we're just not able to measure it to its full capacity. That's all it means.
Well, it's not really in principle possible to do that.
Well, what do they say? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Who said that?
Who was it? Was it Newton or something?
It was.
Yeah, there you go. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah. That has
So
nothing
it's
to do with
measurable
chaos,
to an
but okay.
extent. It's measurable to an extent. We know that for every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. So we know that for a fact.
Okay, what does that have to do with chaos?
The fact that we know that makes it literally not chaotic. We were able to measure it.
That has nothing to do with... No,
We just don't understand it.
The statement that you made has nothing to do with measurement.
You just said that everything that's chaotic is because we're not able to measure it to its full extent.
No, we're not able to predict outcomes with any degree of certainty because we're not able to measure the initial conditions with absolute precision.
Exactly.
Stop saying exactly. Repeat back to me what I said.
You said we're not able to measure it to its full extent. We can only do probabilities on it, basically.
Do you think that's what I said?
Kind of see what I'm saying though?
No.
Just because we're not able to fully measure it, it just means we're not able to fully measure it to its full extent.
Yes, that's what makes a system chaotic. When the input conditions change a little bit, the output results change wildly. That's what chaos is. And we see that in the universe everywhere. Literally every single gravitational system that we observe, every single chemical system that we observe, they're all chaotic. Every single one of them.
Because of our limited perception.
No, chaos has nothing to do with our ability to measure. It's just a consequence of chaotic systems is that if you have a limited ability to measure, then you can't make predictions. But even if you could measure with arbitrary precision, the system would still be chaotic. You could just predict the chaotic system.
What's to say there's not an intelligence out there that can fully measure all of these systems?
It doesn't make it less chaotic.
You wouldn't know that.
That the definition of chaotic is that it is a mathematical definition. It applies to a system whether or not you can measure with arbitrary precision.
I feel like when we develop more advanced technology like quantum computers, maybe that'll give you a better answer.
It will not. This is a mathematical fact about our universe. That doesn't have anything to do with tech.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was a nice chat, man. I guess I'm not gonna tell you about nothing about Christianity, nothing like that, but.
Wait, you're a Christian after all of this? I thought you said that you weren't.
No, I'm saying like I'm not gonna be like, oh, Jesus is the one true creator.
Okay, good.
Like,
I'm glad.
You know.
I am glad.
Yeah.
All right, but I'm gonna let you go, Rexies. But thanks for being here.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Take care. All right, let's bring on another guest. Do we have any guests in the control room? We do. We have one Terran. Terran, can you hear me? Can you hear me all right, Terran?
Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, I can. I'm going to bring you up. Give me just one. Actually, I think everybody can already hear you. Give me just an audio check really quick.
Check 1, 2.
Seems good. All right, what god do you believe in?
I believe in the biblical God.
Okay.
Yeah,
no, that's fine. It's just people will say I believe in God, and I'm like, okay, are you a Muslim? Are you like Zoroastrian? Like, I just need some context, right? Okay. Yeah. So why? Why should I believe in that?
I wanted to touch somewhat on kind of the better end of the last caller's debate. Hearing you made a comment basically that you believe the universe never essentially had a beginning. I mean, it'll kind of restart itself, but it never.
I at least lean that way, like 60-40, maybe.
Yeah, 60-40, nice. Well, I was curious what one of the primary evidences are that you believe that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's basically like a few lines of reasoning. One is that the model that we used to have, which is what gave us the understanding that the universe has been expanding or will always expand into the future and has always been expanding in the past, that model is in the process of being overturned. So if the evidence that the universe is always expanding gave us credence that the universe didn't, or that the universe did have a beginning, then the opposite must therefore imply that if it's not going to expand forever, that must mean that you at least have some evidence that it did not have a beginning. So that's one piece of evidence. It's recent,
Nice.
but it's one piece of evidence.
Okay, well, I'm curious on that. Where
another piece of evidence is that you know, kind of the ways that we describe the universe in various methods, like the way that we talk about the universe kind of as a whole is done in the field of quantum cosmology, and the typical models that are put forward, like the only consistent models that have ever been put forward, actually, with two exceptions, I think, in quantum cosmology, are models of a universe that exists forever. So just on the abundance of possible models that could explain where we came from, it seems like the vast majority rely on the universe existing forever, and very few to allow for a beginning. So it just seems like on the balance that it seems more plausible one way than the other.
Okay. Am I correct in assuming that energy, it can't be created or destroyed, right? As far
Not
as
really, unfortunately.
Not really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a good statement to make when you're talking about like a laboratory, but when you're talking about the universe as a whole, it's not really true anymore.
So assuming that the universe retracted into a very small space, I guess we'll touch on that in a minute. Where does the current energy that's wrapped up in the vast expanse of the universe, where does that go exactly until it kind of blows?
It would get really, really hot.
But it wouldn't dissipate anywhere?
Where would it go?
That's what I'm wondering.
Well, there is nowhere else for it to go. We're talking about the whole universe, right?
Yeah. Which, do you believe it's infinite as far as we know?
In size, that seems plausible. It seems like that's the simplest explanation for the data that we have. But we don't have super good
like
data.
Stuff, but infinite space to be.
Yeah. Oh, no, but also infinite stuff.
So, like infinite stars, essentially.
Yep.
So how do you shove infinity into one point, and how small does it get exactly?
Well, it would never stop being infinitely large. It would just be smaller infinitely large, which is sounds paradoxical, but there's like a good mathematical way to describe this notion.
Does that technically mean that everything would be shrinking to an extent at the same time?
No, it would mean that everything would be getting closer together.
Doesn't everything kind of decay? Like, wouldn't another Big Bang essentially just recycle matter and energy that's already here?
Not necessarily. I mean, well, okay, yes, but not in a way that like it's using stuff that was used up. You'd kind of be resetting the clock.
So what happens to the matter that we're currently with in this,
Presumably, it vaporizes and then becomes a quark gluon plasma, and then something else happens that we don't fully understand. It gets to an even higher temperature, and then it starts over. That would be at least one possible explanation.
Yeah, interesting. Have we seen this anywhere in nature that would kind of aid in this being a plausible theory, or is it just kind of putting some pieces together that could be?
Are you asking, have we seen a universe expand and recollapse in nature?
Well, I'm sure we haven't.
Well, yeah, because there's only the one universe, right?
Yeah. Any other part of nature at all? Have we seen a star do that? Any form of energy?
Yeah, in some sense, that's what a supernova is. A star is a big thing, and then it collapses, and then it explodes.
Does any of the matter delete, or the energy just, what did you say, kind of just get hot?
Well, yeah, that's what happens in a supernova. It collapses, it gets wildly hot, and because it gets so hot, it explodes.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to see how that would fit into unless there's some more information. It sounds like it's really just a theory.
I mean, like, we're talking about quantum cosmology here, so we don't have any, like, there's evidence, but like there's no mainstream accepted consensus model here because, you know, we're at the frontiers of science.
Yeah, it's tough to go see that kind of universe type stuff. Okay, so does this are you a materialist?
I'm a physicalist.
A naturalist, I should say. Sorry, I guess
some kind of something like that, yeah.
So there is no immaterial in existence.
Yeah, that's, I mean, like, it depends on how you define immaterial. Like, I'm happy to say that, like, conceptual things exist in minds, and insofar as, like, you know, minds are rendered by, like, neurons or whatever, but I don't think that there are things, like, I don't think that there are immaterial things that exist independent of minds. Let's put it that way.
So before I shimmy to the moral argument, because that's so fun, scientifically, and you're vastly smarter than I am. I didn't go to school or anything. So let me try and put this in words. I'm curious how, I mean, there's a specific, math is not an immaterial thing. It's just a label that we apply, of course. I would never say that it's some immaterial force that affects stuff. But like, for example, gravity around the universe, or we could just say here on Earth for the sake of argument, is set to a very specific number, a very specific constant that doesn't seem to change. And I'm just wondering how, like, what law or material thing or something in the universe allowed for that specific digit. I mean, did gravity evolve through natural selection?
Some people think that, actually. I don't know how convinced I am of that position,
Yeah.
but that's like on the table. It's called cosmological, I think it's actually called cosmological natural selection is the name. It was put forward by Lee Smolin in the early 2000s, I want to say, maybe the late 90s.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like they're just applying what they've assumed to happen in nature with living things to just quickly kind of fill in the gap for something like the equation for gravity.
I mean, it's not the only explanation, but it is a live explanation that, you know, is at least, as far as I know, it hasn't shown to be inconsistent with the data that we have.
Yeah. All right. And I guess given that, I'll think about that because it just seems weird to me. I am a Christian.
Is it weirder than like? So let me. Sorry, actually, one sec. Nicole just sent me $15. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you. Yeah. So does it seem weirder to you that God chose this very specific value of the gravitational constant? Because he could have chosen any other value, but he chose this one for what reason?
Well, first of all, that fills the obvious gap with what allows this number, which is just our identifier of it, but what it is, you know, this amount of gravity, what sets this amount, seems to make more sense in my mind, actually, that, you know, a God outside of these values that's not confined by them would set that. And
but then it just pushes the buck back, right?
Well, in that case, he could set it for any number of reasons. He made all of this other matter to behave and natural laws to behave in a certain order. So, of course, he would know a pretty good numerical value for gravity.
So, but then why did he arrange it this way with this gravitational constant and this matter and this type of matter and these laws rather than some other way?
Because that's how he wanted to create it.
But now that's as much a non-explanation as any explanation I could have given. Well, you're just saying, well, we don't actually know why. He just wanted to. We don't know why he wanted to. He just did.
Better, which still makes more sense than nothing did it at all.
Sorry, one more time. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. It makes more sense than nothing did it at all, is just to assume that he probably knows better. I mean, we're trying to confine. We're saying
that's not an explanation. Like, it's a non-explanation, right? Just to say, well, he knows why. Well, that doesn't explain why.
Doesn't atheism use kind of the same anti-explanation? I mean, we have theories.
Well, no, I mean, the whole business of science is to try to come up with explanations, right?
Yeah.
That's the
So
whole
we could
business.
say, just like for a Big Bang Theory or a number of other atheistic beliefs, that we're just waiting on an explanation and we have theories in the meantime. Why can't I borrow the same logic?
So, look, if your position is that I should, I mean, perhaps you can, perhaps you'd be justified in doing so, but then you're just saying, well, my belief is equally as unjustified as the atheist's belief.
In which case, I guess it would just cancel the argument out.
Right. I mean, I think that your explanation is actually far worse than mine. But if you think that our explanations are equally good, well, then it's not an argument in favor of the existence of God.
I don't see how it's a favor and the opposite. I mean, we're saying,
Well, because I can actually give you
the
mechanisms,
question
right?
is, Jesus could have made it a different way, according to my perception. Therefore, he must not exist. Or
No, the point is that if you're proposing that it's an issue, that we have some arbitrary cause, some physical arbitrary cause of the physical constants, I just assert back to you, well, suppose that's true. Under your worldview, there is a arbitrary non-physical cause, and it's equally poorly explained.
I guess it's like a smart God made something how he wanted versus nothing.
Yeah, but why did he want it that way? Also, if you think that if you think that the universe always existed, which I kind of do, there is no creation event, so there's no need to explain why the universe picked these.
Well, I believe
because there was never a state where it started with nothing and then it popped out with these, right?
Yeah, I from my basic logical line of thinking, it's like, for a universe to expand a lot like we see, that's fine. And then to shrink down at some point a lot and get really hot, it would have to recycle. I mean, everything decays at a certain rate. Nothing doesn't decay, and nothing seems to get better.
Electrons don't. Protons don't.
Well, that's fine. Matter decays.
But electrons and protons are what make up 99% of the matter in the universe.
Then why does matter decay?
Because there's other stuff in the 1%.
Then that other stuff decays, right?
Yeah, it just becomes more protons and electrons.
Forgot where I was going with this.
Sorry for interrupting. That's my bad.
Oh, no, you're all right. It's a good conversation. No worries.
You said you wanted to bring up the moral argument, if you still want to talk about that.
Let's jump over to that. So, would you take the position of moral relativity?
I fluctuate between some sort of subjectivist position and some sort of quietist position.
What's a quietist position?
Basically, that everybody's confused about what morality is, and people don't really the language that people use to describe morality is just not actually describing anything at all, and that people are just confused and expressing their emotions and their feelings and their stances.
Well, then why do you want to avoid stubbing your toes so badly?
Well, I don't like it.
Yeah, but what is like it?
Well, it means that I am biologically driven to avoid that stimulus.
So things can affect our biological drive to do certain actions, right?
Sure.
In general.
Yeah, sure.
We'll just call it that. So then if someone rapes someone that you love, we'll say some horrific crime, murder, rape, whatever you want to go to, I guess would be horrific in my perspective.
I agree. Be horrific.
Why don't we have to sit there and remind ourselves that society probably agreed that it was our human, wildly inconsistent definition of bad? It seems.
Why don't we have to?
Certain things in life inhibit certain mental reactions, and we don't get to
that's consistent with my view. My view is that most of our moral intuitions, most of our stances and preferences, come from biological impetuses, like evolutionary processes leading to human psychology, and then some influences from the society that the person grows up in.
Which means that plays into natural selection, correct?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So why we've been given so many billions or whatever years to evolve. Why do we have these useless things like pity? What does that do for survival?
Would it increases social bonds. We're a social species.
Why is there a social drive through?
Because social creatures are more successful than non-social creatures.
But why is success the point of the drive?
The ones that weren't driven towards reproductive success died out. So
what?
Well, I mean, I'm not putting a moral judgment on that. I'm just saying that the reason we have this drive is because we were the ones. Because if you have that drive, you're more likely to survive and pass on your genes, which means that your descendants will be more likely to have that drive. So this is just like elementary natural selection.
Yeah, what made that kind of the law? I don't know how you would define it. If it's a law or some sort of odd physicality or some.
It's not a law or a force. It's like a tautology. Things that are more likely to survive are more likely to survive. So things that are less likely to survive are less likely to survive.
So why is survival the point?
It's not. There isn't a point. This is just a fact of the universe that if you are more likely to survive, you're more likely to survive. You can, if you want to put like some judgment on that, saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, you can if you want. I don't care. But it is a fact that things that are more likely to survive are the things that are more likely to survive.
What causes us more likely to survive given empathy and how empathy evolved and how we have empathy now?
So again, we're a social species. So all of these psychological behaviors that you're talking about, these common psychological behaviors, these are generally explained by the need to have strong social bonds.
So then why don't we just kill off everyone over 70 or so years old? They don't contribute much to society. We could select maybe the smarter ones that seem to add something. That's cool. But why don't we just kill them off?
I mean, if you wanted to propose that, you could, but most people would have a gut reaction to that being bad, because the drive toward empathy, the drive toward, altruism, the drive towards preservation of the family, these are all things that are built in biologically. You can't reason your way out of them. So even if you say, they're over 70, so they're not technically useful, so it's not like that doesn't matter. These biological, impetus to feel empathy is overwhelming.
So in layman's terms, there's a natural drive to keep everyone alive as a social society in general.
There's a natural drive to preserve the people that you care about.
So then why does that nature change when there's someone you don't care about?
Because you don't care about them.
So then how doesn't that apply to strangers? I mean, if there's a group of 100
generally it doesn't.
So why not kill them?
Humans have been doing that for basically the entirety of human history. This whole idea of, actually we should care about people in a far off country is like maybe 200 years old.
From my experience, I fail to see how it's ever been a natural drive.
And which part? A natural drive to maintain society's existence, or to keep your friends and family alive, or?
If we're all essentially molecules blown in the wind, evolved to this order of natural selection, survival of the fittest, empathy, things like caring about other people on the other side of the world and trying to grow as a society. Can you do anything about that? Is that just naturally?
That's how humans are. It's just what humans are. There are other social species that have other behaviors.
Sorry, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's fine. Take your time.
I guess that's a bigger scale of like elderly euthanization example. It's my own argument. Then I'm curious about a smaller scale. And this means that essentially as long as you do stuff in secret and society doesn't find out about it, then keep doing your thing.
Sorry, what's the question?
Now it seems like this is hingent or whatever. It's kind of leaning on the idea that society would have to be involved with this. So
no, this is a biological impetus, right? We have a biological drive to, be pro-social. Now, not everybody does. We call the people who don't, we call them sociopaths.
or antisocial.
Yeah, antisocial personality disorder would be another good example.
So do they have something wrong with them?
Yes.
Like I guess kind of a physicality in the brain or something.
Yeah, some neurological difference from the rest, or from the rest of the, the rest of the population.
So which race would you say is more evolved, human-wise?
That came out of nowhere. Do you think that there's a correct answer to that question?
Well, obviously not from like my worldview.
You sure?
I mean, certain people have skin tones that adapt better to parts of the earth, given the amount of sun that they have to encounter and stuff. That it seems, from an evolutionary perspective, why wouldn't I make the implication that there should be a race of people that are slightly less evolved?
There's no way to quantify how evolved something is. Everything that's currently alive is optimized for its environment.
Yeah.
That's what it means. That's what evolution does, right? So I don't know what you mean by less evolved.
I guess that answers it if we haven't created a quantification to idealize exactly how evolved something is.
Well, it's not even a question that makes sense, right? Like, a tortoise in the Sonoran Desert is just as evolved as humans are.
Didn't we come from a... Well, then how does common ancestry work?
Common ancestry is it's a branching tree. It's not like a race to the top.
So we all come from one thing, right?
Yeah.
If you go far
yeah.
enough back in the chain. That means between that one thing and us, there's a whole lot of stuff that had to evolve into humans.
Yeah, and those things, and there's a whole lot of stuff that had to evolve into tortoises and fish and seagulls and
wouldn't that have
amoebas.
Where does that connect closest between humans and turtles? If you kind of wind back.
Oh, you'd have to go back like. I'm taking a wild guess here, but my guess is you'd have to go back like 200 million years.
To what kind of creature would you think?
My guess is like some very early reptile. There's a website, by the way, that has like the whole family tree, and I could go find it for you if you want.
I've seen a couple. They all kind of look like different to me. It seems like people kind of fill in and move around some of the spaces because it seems highly theoretical. I mean, for the most part.
I mean, it's not really like you can just do genetic testing and find relations.
Yeah, but we have relations genetically to a banana.
Yes, you're right. We do.
So
that just means that we're related. That just means that we're distantly related to a banana.
That's making a claim. The evidence could go two ways. I mean, you could claim that it's because we're genetically related back enough in the ancestry tree, but what we also see is that that's just so that we can introduce its proteins.
By the way, I found it. Our last common ancestor with turtles is about 320 million years ago. So
320.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, what were you saying about common ancestry?
With bananas, I mean, we have similarities in DNA so that we can process the proteins of a banana in our body. I mean, that could equally argue a common creator or just the relation between humans and nature. I don't see why that begs the assumption that we came from similar things.
But you just don't believe this, right? Like genuinely, you just don't believe this because you agree that the way that we test for relatedness in paternity tests is by just checking whether the father has similar DNA to the child. That's how we check whether or not one person descends from another. We do. Nobody does a paternity test and then somebody says, but maybe they were both cloned by the same person. Like, that's just not what anybody believes.
So where do bananas and humans meet up at on the branches?
All right, you want me to? All right, I'm zooming out. Okay, I'll just type in banana, and it should take me to the... Okay, that's... No, we want, like, some sort of plant. Those are eukaryotes. Bananas are eukaryotes, right? Yeah, okay, so about 2.1 billion years ago.
And what was it?
It was some proto-eukaryote.
Proto-eukaryote, fancy. So then this Every time I wind back on the ancestry tree, I wonder how we evolved into symbiotic relationships.
You said it. You answered the question yourself. Evolution.
Evolve. Well, yeah. If human or if oxygen breathing creatures need plants and vice versa, because the plants need.
No, they don't though. So in fact, one of the first mass extinctions in the the biological record was when I want to say it was archaea, which is a type of, it's sort of like a bacteria but not quite. And an archaea, a certain species of archaea developed or evolved to produce oxygen, and the oxygen levels rose and rose and rose. Cyanobacteria, not archaea. Thank you. The oxygen levels rose and rose and rose, and oxygen is actually toxic to most things, and basically everything died.
Rough.
Yeah. But yeah, so things can make oxygen without needing plants, right? In fact, like algae do this.
What about the termite that has a kind of a miniature, almost termitish thing in its stomach? It's a separate organism, but they grow together from birth.
I don't know the evolutionary history of the termite. I'm sure that somebody studied this though. There are a lot of evolutionary biologists. They study all these kinds of questions.
Hey, termites are cool, bro. Yeah, I guess I used to be a evolutionist and atheist and all of it, of course, and I just couldn't see the consistency. It seemed like you have to pre-assume that there's no creator, then you have to fill in the gap. I mean, people claim God of the gaps, and I'll grant that's fine, but then there's time of the gaps and this mysterious force called.
So I just have a quick question, just to.
Yeah.
When you were an atheist, what was your best argument against the existence of the Christian God?
It was evolution and like dating, like rocks and like rock layers with fossils, and carbon-14 before that was sketchy, and then I was on the bandwagon of
carbon-14 isn't how evolutionary dating works. They don't use carbon-14 for that.
Not evolutionary, but I assumed if the world was old, then you wouldn't need a god. Which, even if there is evolution, it doesn't technically, you can't say that disproves a god. But
do you think the world is young?
Yeah, I think it could make sense.
How? How do you make sense of, the fact that there are trees older than the world as described in the Bible?
We just suck at dating stuff.
You can just count rings.
Well, you have to assume that the atmospheric conditions and stuff are always consistent.
You can wait, weird. That has nothing to do with counting rings in trees.
Well, then how does the counting the tree? How do the rings form in the tree?
My understanding is that during one of the seasons, they get less water and less nutrition, and during another season, they get more water and more nutrition. And so you have different growth rates between the seasons, and that gives the different thicknesses and hence the different colors of the rings.
And do you have a general idea of the time scale to form a ring that they've
It's a year.
assessed?
It's 1 year. Right, that's the time scale to form a tree ring.
So they're finding trees with like 200.
There are known trees that are older than 5,900 whatever years.
I guess I just haven't seen any of those.
There's a whole there's a list on Wikipedia. It just says list, like it's like list of oldest trees, and then they there's the sources and all of that stuff. And there's some that are like 10,000 years old or whatever. But also there's like Antarctic ice ring or Antarctic ice core dating. Basically, you can see, like, just by looking at ice cores, you can see when it's when there's a lot of snow, and then when there's a little bit of snow, and then when there's a lot of snow, and then a little bit of snow, and this is periodic with seasons, so it happens. So you get one layer every year.
I was into like rocks. I never looked into that stuff. It wouldn't.
But rocks, you don't carbon date rocks.
If the world was that old.
Sorry?
they would look at layers. They would look at the layers of the rocks, kind of like trees and kind of like icebergs,
Sure.
and assume how long it would take for each layer to form, or its effect that the effect the water had to carve out the rocks, and the
That's
age
not
of the
how they.
fossil.
That's not how they
They would
date
carbon
things.
date fossils they find in a layer, and then
They
assume
don't. They
the
don't carbon
layers
date. You can't carbon date fossils.
That was then. Why are we teaching that to kids in school?
It's not taught to kids in school. You can carbon date like woolly mammoths, but those aren't fossils. Those are just like frozen animals, right? You can't carbon date things that are 50 million years old.
They're coming out with some crazy ages for fossils that we find. How are they? And they say
they use uranium lead dating. Nobody says that they use
like
carbon dating.
That's the rate of decay, right? That they're measuring.
Yes. They use argon. They use calcium. It's not the same as carbon dating, not at all. Yeah, there's also potassium argon dating. Yeah, so uranium lead dating, potassium argon dating, these are completely different dating mechanisms than carbon dating.
Don't they use the same concept?
I mean, in a sense that they both involve radioactivity, but that's the only connection.
So what are they measuring in the radioactive activity?
In the case of uranium lead dating, they're measuring the presence of lead in zircon crystals and the presence of uranium in zircon crystals and comparing them. In potassium argon dating, it's similar.
They're just
but with potassium and argon.
And what do the amounts tell them exactly?
Well, so in the case of
pick lead or something.
Sorry?
You can pick one if you want.
Yeah. So in the case of uranium lead dating, the desired, it's called a geochronometer. The desired the preferred geochronometer is a zircon crystal. And zircon crystals are particularly nice because when they form, so it's like, think of like lava. It's not really lava, but think of like lava, and then it solidifies and it forms a crystal. When they solidify, the atoms that are in there are locked in. They can't get in, they can't get out because it's a crystal. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that the chemical composition of zircon, you know how like some crystals will have like impurities? That's like, diamonds will have impurities or whatever. Mm-hmm. So zircon crystals can have some impurities, and the types of impurities that they can have depend on the size of the atom. And it depends on the size of the atom and the electronegativity. There's a lot of features. But anyway, one of the types of impurities that it can have is uranium. One of the types of impurities it cannot have is lead. So lead is not compatible with the crystal structure. So if there's lead in the lava as it's freezing, it'll get kicked out when the crystal forms. Basically, the crystal will grow and it'll push the lead away because the lead can't get incorporated. But uranium is roughly the same size as the thing it would be taking the place of. And so uranium can substitute in. So when the zircon crystal forms, it can have some amount of uranium in it. It can't have any lead in it, though. And so that's wonderful for us, because if we can figure out... there's one more ingredient. Namely, uranium decays into lead. But if it decays into lead in the middle of the crystal, the lead can't escape. It just sits there kind of as a defect. And so if we can figure out how much lead is in a zircon crystal, then we know, and we know how long it takes uranium to decay, which we do, then we know how long that uranium has been decaying. And that tells us how long that zircon crystal has been frozen. And that gives us an age.
And it's always a consistent rate of decay. It's like an unchanging numerical value.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you say people don't try and date things with carbon-14, and that confuses me, because that's...
So you can date things up to about 50,000 years with carbon dating. But if we're talking about millions or billions of years, you can't use carbon dating for that.
Yeah, because the carbon would decay away.
It would just be gone.
Right.
Well, it would decay down to like a background level, a level of like instrument error.
So how long does it take for a diamond to form generally?
Oh, I know where you're going with this. This is fun because I know this study. It depends, but generally most diamonds are quite old.
Yeah, more than 50,000.
Yep. And so you're about to ask, well, what about that one study that found carbon in diamonds, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they didn't find carbon in diamonds. The purpose of that study was to use something that they knew had no carbon-14 in it to measure the amount of carbon-14 that was being detected purely by the instrument itself. They were trying to measure systematics from the instrument. They were trying to measure systematic error. That was the purpose of the study. So when they measure a diamond and they say, we detect, 5 atoms of carbon-14, they're like, okay, well, that means that our instrument is only accurate to within 5 atoms. That was the whole point of it. They didn't actually measure any C14. It was instrument error. That's the whole point. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah. I mean, instrument error will always detect some because our instruments aren't perfect. Yeah. But you will never find a lump of coal that has, a significant chunk of carbon-14 in it, like, a 5,000-year-old bone will, or not bone, a 5,000-year-old piece of plant will, right?
Yeah.
It's always negligible, and that's because it's instrument error, not because there's actual residual carbon-14 left over in it.
Yeah, whack. Well, nice. Well, cool.
Of course, lab-grown diamonds might be a different story, by the way, but,
Yeah, I would hope so. But nice. So, yeah, you touched on stuff I wanted to talk about. I'll let another caller jump on. I don't want to talk in a car, but
fair enough. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll be coming back at some point. I watch your streams quite a bit while I'm at work and stuff.
Oh, I'm glad that you enjoy them. Thanks for being here, Taryn. Of course.
Yeah, you have a good day.
Take care. All right, let's move on to our next guest. We're going to take a guest from TikTok. Remember, if you're watching from TikTok or from YouTube, make sure to like the live. It gets more people in here, which means that we have better conversations, which, helps me because, who knows, I might be mildly unemployed sometime in the near future. So these are all good things. So yeah, like the live. And if you want to support me, you know how. All right, let's bring up our next guest, Fritz Bow. All right, Fritz Bow is not coming up. Bring up another guest. Let's bring up Brett. All right, Brett's not coming up. Let's bring up Brooks. Brooks, how's it going?
Not too bad. How you doing? Been having fun watching the live.
I'm glad. So, what do you believe?
That's a good question. I guess I would say I do, but I don't believe in God. It's really hard. I kind of take a middle road path as to existence or not existence. It's hard for me to prove it from my point of view, if that makes sense. Like, I can prove in one direction and start getting to where I feel like, hey, there maybe atheism is what makes sense, but I feel like there isn't enough evidence for me to fully prove in one way or another. And to take a little bit like a more chill aspect of why I do have this wavering belief back and forth, I think it directly impacts my quality of thought, and the possibility of my thoughts that come out of me are directly impacted by my possible range of what exists, if that makes sense. And you can see this actually in inventions in the past with things like the printing press. Like, what was the printing press invented for?
Presumably to print things.
But Bibles. Okay. It was to print Bibles, first of all, right?
But Brooks,
which is, I'm not saying that.
So Brooks, so if you're not sure what you believe, how are you going to convince me if you don't even know what you believe yourself?
I think it's hard. I think it's hard for you to say that you're an atheist with surety. I mean, you can, right? That's totally your
I just
way to claim, right?
It says it right up here. You're allowed to be agnostic. Yeah. I'm just not.
No, I'm convinced. I know. I just like from my perspective, I think it affects your quality of thought and your possibility of like unique thought that might be outside of what is known by humanity, for example.
I disagree.
Well,
I think I'm just as creative, and in fact, arguably more so.
Well, I don't know if that's the case because it's like you can kind of see it with like spirituality and like our comic books and things like that today. Like, um, the bad guy or the good guy in most of these comic books are often mythical or godlike creations, right?
It's because they're
If
good
we
stories.
all if we all now out, yeah, absolutely, right? Like many religions, right?
Yeah, religions are good
So
stories. Yeah, sure. But
yeah,
so are
so
things like the Odyssey, which is probably one of my favorite stories of all time.
yeah, and myths are fantastic for shaping character, right? It's better than just kind of believing Western religion and going down um, that thought path of like Christ or Jesus or whatever the hell it is that drives people in Christianity. Um, I just think from my perspective, I experience higher quality of thought, leaving it as an undefined versus a null state for God. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
I mean, if that's what you got to do to improve your quality of life, that's great.
Well,
Doesn't
no,
seem to be the case for me.
it's quality of thought. It's quality of thought.
Okay,
It's
quality of
quality
thought
of
then,
thought.
fine. Like if that's what you got to do for to keep your quality of thought high, cool. I'm not going to tell you to
Well, I
stop.
mean, well, do you think it was just like me? I'm like the only person that would have done that as like someone who thinks as a regular thing to like think about topics and things like that. Take Tesla for example, right? Very spiritual.
Oh, I don't. Okay.
I mean, I'm saying like his capability or his creativity was a major draw from his spirituality. Is what I'm saying. So while you can
Stephen Hawking was an avid atheist, and he's Stephen Hawking.
sure, but we're kind of going to the end of the road with regards to science and our current Big Bang beliefs. You were just talking about that a second ago. To me, it seems like many scientists are puppeting from the Hawkings or from the ones that managed to think. And it's possible. So I don't know how I feel about like I'd have to think about Hawking and like how he like I would have to study him better if I'm being honest. I studied more around Tesla, Einstein,
You
and a few
shouldn't.
other.
Tesla's not that important in the history of science, all things considered.
I mean, I find that hard to believe because it's just like I don't find anybody not important. Even
In
the
the
people
history of
you've brought on the
science,
call here. Yeah,
I'm
I
talking
would
about in the
love.
history of science. Like obviously Einstein's very important in the history of science. Newton is very important in the history
Mhm.
of science. Tesla is not.
Well, I think that's just a definition from a Western perspective. Like I couldn't even
I mean,
know.
Al
Like, how would I
Khwarizmi is
even?
very important to the history of science, and he was Turkish, sort of Ottoman. Um, like there are plenty of non-Western people who are important to the history of science. Tesla just wasn't one of them.
Well, no, from my perspective at least, I felt like I could not get enough information out of what Tesla was working towards to even begin to make a statement like you're making right now. Like,
Well,
unless I'm gonna
we know what he
puppet.
did, and we know what he was right about, and we know what he was wrong about. And he was wrong about a lot, and he was right about very little.
So, from my perspective, again, I feel like even if you feel like everything he was doing was wrong, I feel like I would. This is hard for me to explain because I'm trying to talk about it in more of like a metaphysical, like how does your quality of thought improve or suffer based on your static beliefs, right? Because that's
Who
kind of
says my
how,
beliefs are static?
well, you're an atheist. That's a static null state, like,
You're
right?
an agnostic. That's a static.
No,
That's a
I'm not.
static
I'm
non
not.
null state.
But I didn't say I was agnostic. I
You
like
were
there. I
you
literally
didn't
go
say
through.
it, but you didn't say it, but
No,
you conveyed it.
I literally no, I literally go through phases. Sometimes I'm like, oh great, Christianity feels great until I run into a speed bump. And then I'm like, oh, that hat honestly sucked to wear after a while, right? So then I'm like, oh, Judaism, that seems like a cool hat to wear. I actually try the hats on. I don't go, oh,
Do you think I
it's a
haven't
null
thought about
state.
these things?
Well, I'm not saying you haven't, right? It just seems to be so sure. It just seems like
Well, I'm convinced of something. I'm sure you're convinced that the Earth is a sphere.
well, I'm yeah, absolutely.
And
I'm not
does
gonna
that make you less
fight.
creative because you're not willing to because you're
Well, actually,
convinced
it
of something
does.
that's
It
true?
actually does because you could be, for example, you are and again, this is kind of going into the more fun side of it. If you are a writer and you're writing about this flat world, right? And mind you, I don't, that's not what I believe in, right? But let's say they're writing about this flat world. All of that creativity around that flat world comes that from that flat world belief. And while me and you are going to say, yeah, the world's not flat, right? the possibility of what they create is much greater
You know
than
that Terry
otherwise.
Pratchett, who is the most prolific flat Earth fantasy writer, didn't think the Earth was flat.
No, I totally see it sometimes as just a way to argue with people. Like I like to sit on the flat Earth ones and hear people
No,
talk back and
sorry.
forth.
He wasn't a flat earther. He wasn't a guy who argued for the flat. He was an author who made up a fictional world called Discworld, and he wrote
Oh,
dozens
that's
of
pretty
books
cool.
about it because it's and he's brilliant, brilliant author. But he
Yeah.
wasn't a flat earther. He didn't need to be a flat earther in order to write these books.
Well, no, maybe not him, but I'm saying like
Nobody
somebody
does.
could.
You can write fantasy without believing the fantasy.
Sure, right? But many good fantasies come from people that actually believe those fantasies. The same with like religion, and
Do you
a
think
lot
that
of the
like
fantasies were true.
J.R.R. Tolkien believed that he was actually, translating a book from like Middle Earth?
I can't know that. I really can't know that. No, because like let me step back for a second. Are you a visual thinker or no?
I can
Like
be
if
a
you
visual
think about
thinker,
something,
but I don't
no,
have a
if you think about
well-defined.
something, for example, no, because I actually question this quite a bit. If you think about something, do you see things in your head, or are you just kind of playing in front of your head, in front of yourself here, and your head doesn't show you anything? For
I
example,
hear
for
things,
me,
I see things, I smell things.
no, I'm talking more about like mentally seeing imagery.
Yes, I can mentally see things, I can mentally hear things, I can mentally smell things.
So that's the space that I kind of get into where I can't tell what is me, and sometimes many times it is me, and then what if that quality of whatever the imagery is can be directly impacted by my static beliefs. And that's part of why I was saying, like, when I was trying different hats on and stuff, I actually was testing to see, hey, do I see different imagery when I'm believing I'm a full-on Christian in Western religion, for example? Does that make sense?
Not really. You want to explain again? I may have just missed it.
So the imagery that I see inside my head, and I appreciate you guys in the chat, right? The imagery that I see in my head changes based on my beliefs, right? So I've moved my beliefs around back and forth to see what kind of imagery I see, right? And from my perspective, right, if you have a lot of mental imagery in your head when you're thinking about things, that imagery can change, is what I'm saying. And that is, at least for me, that's my source of creativity, right? So from my perspective, changing my beliefs to believe, yeah, you can believe whatever you want with the fantasy world. I'm seeing these chat comments here, so it throws
Don't
me
read the
off a little bit.
comments. Don't read the comments, they're just going to distract you.
But yeah, I know I'm being distracted, right? But
So stop
what
reading
I'm
them.
getting, what I'm getting at, is that the range of like the quality of thought that I have, at least. And again, I really don't believe one thing or another. I try to do it's called middle road Buddhism, or middle way. Have you ever heard of that?
Okay. No.
Well, so it's just kind of an art of staying in the middle between any sort of like argument or agreement. It's to see both sides through dialectics, for example, right?
Are you a Marxist?
No, but that always comes up. But I actually am more of a Hegelian.
Okay, fair.
I'm not as much a Marxist or going into the materialism arguments. I like the scientific tool of dialectics to debate a side or another side of a point of view, right? Like that's what
That's fine.
dialectics do for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to get anywhere with this discussion as far as like arguing one way or another. Now that I'm here and I'm thinking about it, I would just wanted to point out, like, from my perspective as someone who highly values creative thought and unique creative thought or novel thought, um, having the existence of God versus not was like a dramatic change in like what I might create as like a solution to something. Does
Well,
that
my
make sense?
job requires that, and I seem to have been doing fine. So
Well, I'm not saying you're not doing fine, right? I'm not saying like you're taking it as if an all or nothing thing, right? I'm not saying you're not doing fine, right? I'm just saying there's possibly a better version of you that could see even more. That's all I'm saying.
the trouble is I have a hard time believing things that aren't that I don't think are true. So even if I wanted to, believe for a few months that God is real, I wouldn't be able to convince myself to do it because I don't think it's true.
No, I think the creator, like the whole made in God's image thing, can become like debunked really quickly, if I'm being honest. Like, that's the most easy one
I
to
didn't
debunk.
say that. I was just talking about like some sort of creator thing or some sort of whatever. Well, the point is if I don't believe it's true, I'm not going to be able to force myself to believe it.
I guess the one that's more easy for me to believe is that I'm more of more of like the Eastern perspective of God looking at itself. You know what I mean? Inspecting itself from the different angles of, like, I mean, that's what I am as a conscious being, is I'm inspecting the world around me through my unique lens of my ego, right? So I have a very unique perspective, just like you have a unique perspective of the world, just like
Doesn't sound
everybody
like
else
you're an
does.
agnostic. Sounds like you're an atheist.
No. See, that's the thing about
Definitely
being on
sounds like
middle
it.
road. I'm telling you, middle road is because you don't
Do
ever
you
go
believe
one
in a
way or the
creator?
other.
Do you believe in a divine creator?
I'm not in a divine creator, but I
Then
think
you're
we
an
could be in a
atheist.
simulation. Well, no, I lean towards simulation.
Simulation
Like,
theory doesn't make you not an atheist.
no, we could totally be inside of a quantum system that's
That
simulating
still makes you an
the environment
atheist.
we have.
That
Well,
still makes you an
no, it
atheist.
doesn't. No, because
It
there could still
does.
be creators doing that, running that system. How the hell would I
Computer
even know what
programmers
kind of?
aren't God.
No, they're not, right? But that
So you're an
from
atheist.
my perspective,
Welcome to the club. I'll
they
print you
are
a
a god.
t-shirt.
No. Well, from my perspective, they're
It
still a
just
god,
sounds like you don't
regardless
want
of,
to use the label.
even if they're a computer programmer, they're still my god. I have no
It just sounds
control
like
over
you don't
that.
want
They're
the.
not,
It just
just because
sounds
they're
like you don't
not a
want to use the
saint,
label.
just because they're not wearing sandals and coming down with a beard and stuff like that, doesn't mean that I don't believe that a computer programmer couldn't be a god.
It just sounds like you don't want to use the label.
Well, it's not so much the label, it's defining idolatry, which is why I like Judaism. And honestly, I like taking idolatry out of it. That's usually when it becomes most pure with respect, because you can't really know what God is anyways. And if you're defining what God is, then chances are you're just using that as a tool or power, you know what I mean, to get power from your followers and stuff like that that believe what you're believing, right? And instead, if you nullify the idolatry and just kind of look at it as like, hey, I don't know what God is, right? Then it kind of becomes more of a, that's a tough one to have with the discussion with you. I knew I was testing my faith coming in here to talk with you.
What faith? You're an atheist.
I'm not. No, I have faith in Middle Road.
That's
Seriously.
not a god. That makes you an atheist.
No, to you it doesn't, but to me it's like I could totally end out on the one side where there is a god of some sort. I could also end up on the other side and I'm just dirt after here, right? It's just, you know what I mean? There's possibility one way or the other, and because I leave that possibility open, my quality of thought is a wider range.
All right, Brooks. Well, I'm gonna let you go because I only accept opposition. Thanks for being here, bud.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, I'm gonna bring on the next guest. I'm gonna bring them on from TikTok. Sorry, not TikTok, YouTube. Damien, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, one sec. Let me just add your name up to the thing, and then we should be good to go. Tell me, what do you believe in?
You know, maybe this is just how I cope with my Christian upbringing, but I've read a lot about Gnosticism. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it's the whole demiurge stuff, right?
Yeah, I guess like when I, the questions you always get when I was like 15 and talking to like camp leaders or Christian leaders or whatever, and there's always questions about suffering and this and that. It makes a lot more sense to think that, I don't know, I'm not sure if this counts as like being an atheist or not, because I sort of don't believe in anything supernatural.
Oh, then if you're a naturalist, then you're an atheist.
Really? Okay. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
like you might believe in a super powerful race of aliens that like created humans, but you're still a naturalist.
Well, I mean, I think about how we're like the products of stars. So in a way, we're like, I mean, I guess it depends how far you want to extend the concept of life, because they talk about stellar evolution. We are products of those stars that happened a while ago. So they are sort of like our creators, and maybe.
Well, yeah, but they're like
scientific.
Stars.
Yeah, and maybe for scientific reasons we shouldn't ascribe something magical to it, but maybe maybe it's just a wonder that I feel for it.
Look, I'm 100% on board with being in awe of our universe, because our universe is spectacular and confusing and beautiful and terrifying, and it's all of these things, but it's not magic.
Yeah, it's true. I guess maybe it's also like, when people say like evolution is random, and it's not really random.
It's
It kind
not.
of, it has a path that it took. So I guess like maybe it's that when I hear like atheist or scientific, or I presume there's no path, but there is sort of like a way that things happen because they're sort of bound to happen that way because of just the laws of physics and how
Yeah.
energy propagates. And I don't understand a lot of those rules. Um, yeah, I don't know. One thing that kind of maybe spooks me a little bit is that, apparently the universe on the largest scales look a lot like neurons. So I'm like, are we
That's
just
just
like a
humans
small?
being dumb. Like humans
Yeah.
and the reason I
But
say that is because humans see patterns and see connections and things that aren't really there. And like if you
but there
squint
is,
hard enough
yeah.
and if you like color code things in the right way, then the large scale structure of the universe kind of looks like branches connecting, and that's kind of what the brain looks like. But like that's all it is. It's nothing really. It's a convenient. It's a nice thought, but it's not really like meaningful.
Okay, well, here's the thing. I guess the question is, I guess I don't know this. How much does the universe change on large scales? Like, because with neurons, you would have like chemical potentials propagating across, like membranes of cells. We don't have that obviously in the universe. So
Right.
I guess it would be a lot more. Maybe it's a lot more static than what I'm imagining.
It's
But
not static per se, but it's very slow.
yeah. I mean, I figure that if it's like, I mean, it would be a consciousness if you would. Maybe you don't want to. I mean, I guess we might disagree on what consciousness is, and that's a whole other mess to get into. But if there is like a certain potentials going through the physics, through the like network of galaxies over, on almost unfathomable periods of time, because we could be in a really young universe. That to me would be like a similar process to how our neurons work, and that would be sort of like, to me, a reflection of us in the universe. But maybe that's more of a perspective thing. It's not even supernatural necessarily. It's just,
Yeah, I mean,
and again,
it
it's
is
also
true that
noticing.
it is true that over the history of our universe, it has matured, it has developed more sophisticated structures. That's absolutely a thing. But that's just because when you start with a simple system and then you let it go to evolve and interact, it's going to become more complex. That's kind of what you expect.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I got. Maybe I guess I have to throw myself to the atheist camp and just be honest. But that demiurge stuff seems,
if
it's
you're
very
uncomfortable,
convincing.
if you're uncomfortable with the label, you don't have to use it. But like, nobody will be mad at you. Well, okay, if you live in the U.S. in like 5 to 10 years, people might be mad at you. But setting that aside, Damien, I'm gonna let you go. But thanks for being here and good luck. Okay.
All right, thanks for having me on, Dr.
Of course.
Blitz.
All right, let's bring on our next guest. Remember to like the live, and if you want to support me, there's a Cash App and there's a Buy Me a Coffee links in the appropriate places. The description somewhere down here if you're on YouTube, and in the link tree in my bio if you're on TikTok. They're all lovely ways to support me if you want to. Let's bring up Metatron, who's been debating atheists for 20 years, who I'm sure has brilliant arguments. By the way, before we get on to that, oh, never mind. I thought I missed something. I did not miss something. Metatron, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right. What do you believe, and why should I believe it?
Well, to be honest with you, I was raised like really fundamentalist Christian, like Bible's Word of God, 7-day creation. And then when I was a teenager, I kind of left that sphere. But I had I got into like drugs and stuff like that. But I had a supernatural encounter, and I ended up going to get a bachelor's in biblical studies, and then I ended up getting a master of divinity in biblical studies also, which that one's 98 credits, and I had to learn 2 years of Hebrew and 2 years of Greek.
Nice.
So in the meantime, I'm 42 now. I had a big interest in physics since I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
You may have known Michio Kaku, the Japanese
I'm familiar with him.
physicist.
Yep.
Well, I heard about him in 1998 on Coast to Coast AM. That was the old Art Bell program.
Sure.
I don't know if you know about that, but
I don't.
Yeah,
I believe
yeah.
you.
So back then, I started studying physics and about the universe, and more or less I've tried to integrate my religious studies with my own experiences and the experience of others, along with what I've learned in science. And, I've watched the debate between creationist and evolution, the Darwinian versus, all of the constructs and debates that have gone back and forth, like I said, for 20 plus years. And it's really been the same arguments over and over, and it's gotten nowhere.
Okay. So then why'd you want to come up?
Well, I want to share some thoughts with you, not to debate, but just to have a conversation, because my worldview is being a little bit shaken right now because of James Webb Telescope, and I think that this is where atheism is gonna. I think atheism is gonna break down right now, culturally, globally.
So, which part of which observation by the JWST did you is shaking your position?
Oh man, there's so many. I'll take one, which is they figured out that the constant that Einstein saw as dark energy was expanding at a constant rate. They see now with James Webb Telescope and other scans that that's actually not true.
Has nothing to do with JWST, by the way. The JWST was not involved in that study. No, it wasn't involved in that study. That was the DESI study, Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument, which is a telescope in Arizona, or it's at a telescope in Arizona. James Webb wasn't involved.
Yeah, that one was initiated to do that. What they found with James Webb was an accident. So
James Webb hasn't released any new results confirming that the cosmological constant is not changing or is changing.
Let's look. I mean, we're on air right now. You can look into it off air a little bit.
I can look into it right now if you want.
Yeah, you can look at. I
just pulled one up.
Yeah, James Webb discovers dark energy is not constant rate.
Okay.
Type in something.
James
like that.
Webb discovers
dark energy.
Dark energy is not constant.
Yeah.
So I'm finding it. So the first link is from Reuters, and it doesn't mention James Webb or JWST once in the article. I did Control F.
Okay. Well, look. Let me.
I did. The next one is the New York Times. I will do another Control F. James Webb is mentioned once and not in the context of the actual thing under discussion. Like, you're just confused about this, which is fine. Like, there's been a lot of bad communication about this.
No. I'm not confused. What you're doing is pulling up some websites and trying to make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay? If you want me to spend time going and finding you a URL right now, I can do that. But I'd rather just talk to you about the observations that I just read about. Okay? And the observations that I read about are that they saw universes in the early formation of the Big Bang that were not supposed to be there.
Are you talking about galaxies?
Look up the wheel galaxy.
Are you talking about galaxies being found that are not supposed to be there?
Yes, they saw fully formed galaxies back at the beginning of time when dark matter was not yet formed. So this is breaking their entire cosmological argument.
No, you're confused. So
no, I'm
dark
not
matter.
confused.
I can assure you. Hold on. Just the things that you said were confused. So dark matter is not something that formed at some point in the universe, nor was dark energy. These are things that have existed since the earliest universe. They've always been there. Second, you're talking about observations that were made years ago by the JWST. This was like summer of 2022, I want to say, maybe summer of 2023, where they I think it was 22 actually, where a team of astronomers took some data and without doing a detailed analysis proclaimed that they were far more complex and far larger than they should have been. But after further analysis, spectroscopic analysis of those same galaxies, they found out actually they're not as big as they thought. They made an incorrect assumption. In particular, they were assuming that there's an abbreviation that I can't remember the name of. Essentially, it's the universal mass function.
Open-ended. Yeah,
they thought the universal mass function was constant, but it's not constant, and this isn't dark energy. It's unrelated to dark energy. Point is I'm familiar with those observations.
Those were old.
Don't have anything to do with dark energy.
They have newer ones.
Okay, what should I look up?
I said the Wheel Galaxy James Webb.
Okay. Webb captures stellar gymnastics in the Cartwheel Galaxy. That one.
Okay, just look up. Okay, on. Okay, so MSN Webb Telescope unveils colossal ancient galaxy. Quote, big wheel.
Okay, one sec. Oh, brother. I don't think that this is new. All right, let's go actually look at let's actually go look at the study, right? So they're talking about a galaxy that's about 1 billion years old. Okay, so it's large. It has a spiral structure. It is very rare.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be there. According to
it says that there's a
2% physics.
It says that there's a 2% chance of finding it. That means that 1 in 50 places that they would find something like this. It's rare,
So
but it's not inconsistent with Einstein's relativity.
Actually, it is. It
Okay.
is. If you look
Where's the
further
inconsistency?
into it,
I'm looking at the paper right now. This isn't even
it's
that
looking
early.
back
It's redshift of
according
3.
to them, and it's red. First of all, that's the longest. Look, these oldest galaxies, they're all red. Okay, they show up as these. Red.
Metatron, just to be clear, I'm not asking this in a condescending way. You know that this is my field of study, right? Like I have a PhD in physics.
Okay, then I encourage you to look into what's about to come out as far as no, it's time. What is the time basis cosmology? Are you aware
We're talking
of
about timescape?
Time basis cosmology.
Timescape cosmology? Is that what you're thinking of?
I don't think it's timescape.
This was a paper that came out like, I don't know, a few months back.
No, this is not something that's been. This has been something that's been talked about. Oh, okay. Hold on. Now I finally found what I've been looking for. Thank you. All right. Okay, just one second, sir. That's awesome. You have a PhD. That's awesome.
In physics, I do relativity and cosmology. Those are the things in physics that I do.
Okay, well then you're a great person to talk to about this because, like I said, I'm legitimately thinking about it. Okay, so now faces serious challenges. Science is from cosmology that may force us to rewrite the laws of space and time.
Where is that written? Is that on MSN or?
Bing bang incomplete. We are using images in accordance with. Let me see. I'm gonna have to go into this. Okay. Dark energy may be evolving.
Yeah, that's from Desi.
So Desi from
Yes.
March 20th, 2025. Dark energy may be evolving. Desi finding shakes up.
Yes,
Einstein's
that's what I was referring to earlier.
Right.
That's what you were referring
to.
to.
Yes, that was one that I just.
James Webb hasn't made any data points about evolving dark energy.
Okay. Then you want to talk about Desi's?
We can, yeah, sure.
Okay, so again, look into it a little bit more.
I've read the paper. I made a video about it. It went viral.
Mm-hmm.
I actually knew about this result before the public did.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, I mean,
so why do you think that this is going to destroy atheism?
Because the way I understand atheism in terms of, they're only talking about we can only know what is the observable universe, right? And that's based on assumption that there was no invisible aspects of what the universe is. And I think that once you can determine that there is an invisible realm, that there is other dimensions where other things can exist that we can't see, then I think that atheism breaks down because you guys are thinking about everything like the Christians would argue back, unmoved mover. Like, who was the first mover that started the whole thing?
It's funny you asked that. It's funny you asked that because the DESI results actually imply, or at least allow for, a universe that has always existed. In fact, this result has been one of the biggest boons to being an atheist on the internet, because it takes the heat death off the table.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm fine with it always existing. Okay.
Well, then it
But
doesn't
I
need a
think that
creator.
it's no, see, I don't think about it like other Christians you may have spoken to. They think in a linear method, like it has to be an unmoved mover. It has to be from point A to B linear. I'm like, and they're thinking in 3 dimensions also. I'm like, no. So I would agree with you that I think that universe can be there forever. I just think that it's been sustained by something. Does that make sense? I feel like
Yeah, but do we have any
energy-
reason to believe that?
Well, I mean, where does the energy come from?
It's always been there.
Where's light?
If
Where's
the
the
universe
origin
has
of
always
light?
existed, then it's always been there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, if it's always been there, is light source? What would that be? You know,
Sorry, can
light
you
and
repeat that
dark.
question?
Let's think of that. Like, if it's always been here, light and darkness, energy has energy always been there in some way,
Yes.
shape, or form? Okay.
Yes.
So then, what if that's God, quote unquote?
Well, energy is a number. It's not an intelligent being sustaining the universe. So,
I mean, it could be.
no, it's a
It could
number,
be.
right?
Well, I mean, it could be God could be a really complex formula, right?
Then you're not a Christian. If you
no,
believe that.
I can be a Christian. No.
I don't think so,
can be.
because the Christian God is a personal God, right?
I can say that I can have a personal interaction with the code if I feel like that's helping me out. You know,
Personal means
a
that
lot
he interacts back, not just you having feelings about things, right?
yeah. I mean, it could be all in my head. You know, that's legitimately true. But it also could be legit that I'm communicating with a higher consciousness. That's also quantifiable in a tangible
But
way. That
energy
we
isn't
may-
conscious.
Well, I don't know. I mean, quantum.
I do.
computers
It's a
can be
number.
quantum.
Numbers aren't
Well-
conscious.
Can numbers be part of software that can become conscious?
Sure, maybe. I don't know if software can become conscious. Maybe it can, maybe it
Well,
can't. But
artificial
numbers
intelligence
themselves are not
software-
conscious. They are just numbers.
I understand, but in a formula, they can become conscious like AI, right?
Numbers
why
cannot
can't-
become conscious, no.
Okay. Can they be designed to be conscious by
Numbers
somebody else?
are not designed? I don't even know
No,
what it
do you-
means.
do you
Numbers are
understand
just
what I'm saying?
No, I have no
Can
idea
they-
what you're saying.
Okay, numbers are fundamental, right? Okay.
It depends
so
on what you
is
mean by
there-
fundamental, but sure.
Okay. At a very basic level, numbers are 1 through 10, right? And I'm saying, like, let's take AI, for example. Can you make AI conscious by writing a code with numbers? I'm
Maybe.
saying that a God, quote unquote, can be some sort of an AI code that is sustaining all this other code. Like, I mean, you know, the numbers and the complex math, it's mind-boggling. I love it. I think it's beautiful, to be honest with you. I think what humans are discovering is amazing, okay? But I don't think there's a contradiction necessarily that there's maybe I can think of it in terms of AI and it can be non-personal. Okay? I just feel like
Right,
there's
but
gotta be
energy
some-
isn't AI.
Okay.
Energy is
We're
a number.
talking about okay, so that's jumping to energy, which again,
Is that not what
like
we were talking
energy,
about?
Energy can't be created, right?
Yes, it can.
Can it? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, where would it be created out of?
The expansion of space.
The expansion of space. Okay. Well, I mean, and this is not a trap question. Like, this is legitimately. I don't get to talk to people like you who are, you know, educated. So what? I'm just trying to think. Like, I mean, what would be the source of the spin? You know, like even on the quantum particles. Like, I understand that there's spin. You know,
That's
some
because
some don't have spin. But
There's actually
where
a
does it-
reason for that, and yeah, so the reason why particles have spin is because the speed of light is constant.
But like, don't neutrinos have like no mass and no spin? And
They have a
go to
little bit
speed?
of mass and a lot of spin.
What was the ones that don't have spin? Wasn't there
The
one
Higgs,
of those?
the Higgs boson doesn't have spin.
Okay. That's the anomaly, right? Okay.
I mean,
That's
I
why
guess.
maybe that's why is that why they call it the quote God particle, because it's a
No, it's
anomaly,
called
or what?
it's called the quote God particle because Leon Letterman, who was writing a popular science book in the 90s about the Higgs boson, wanted to title the book The Goddamn Particle because it was so hard to find, but the publisher didn't like having a swear word in the title, so they renamed it to the
Yeah.
God Particle. Has nothing to do with anything
Yeah.
spiritual or anything like that.
No, yeah, I understand. It's elusive. Like, I mean, DMT is called the spirit molecule, but it's a molecule and it's quantifiable too, But okay, so that's an anomaly one. But okay, so where in my mind, in my feeble mind, there has to be some sort of beginning of spin or just energy or momentum, and it can be an infinite source. It doesn't have to be this linear thought. Like classical theists, like classical theology is kind of being replaced by what's called open theism and open process theism, where they're considering God more like in panentheistic thought, which is different than pantheism. Panentheism means that all is within God. So God even can be impersonal, but that substance or that immaterial substance would somehow be connected to the material substance. Okay. And that's kind of where I land. Like I don't consider myself theist, like a classical theist. And I don't consider myself a pantheist, but panentheism is, I think, like a good middle ground when I'm trying to integrate science too, because that's, I guess, when I say like the invisible realm, like I was just watching a video a couple nights ago when they were talking about how they had to keep adding different parts to subatomic particles, different types of quarks and the different colors. And then there's some about like a shadow set or a negative set of them that they had to come up with to explain. But they just kept saying like it didn't make sense, so we had to assume that there was higher physics that we had to understand and had to figure out. And then they hit another roadblock and say, well, there must be higher physics that we have to figure out to explain it. So in my mind, that can end up being in a what some people call supernatural. I feel like it can be quantifiable.
If it's supernatural, then it wouldn't be describable by physics, right? Physics is a natural science.
I guess it's just from the state of the observer, and I also think that term supernatural has a lot of connotation in society connected to Christians who, are kind of eccentric, and like you see people on the news, Holy Spirit talking snakes and all that stuff. And yeah, supernatural can get I feel like some of these constructs and even these terms, it's not fair, and it doesn't necessarily represent like my thoughts, for example. Like I'm talking to you.
Are you saying that you're a naturalist?
No, I wouldn't call myself a naturalist.
Then you believe in the supernatural.
Well, what I would call supernatural is science that we're still trying to quantify. That's the same thing that I was saying with.
Then it's not supernatural.
It's science, just like you have to figure out higher physics for every conundrum. Well, it's higher physics. We don't get it. But then it became science and it became math once you figured it out. So
it doesn't stop being supernatural when we figure it out. That just means that we were wrong in thinking it was supernatural.
Okay. So then what I'm saying is that what we consider supernatural, or some people consider supernatural, is just something we have not figured out how to explain yet. Does that make sense? So maybe that's
I just disagree with the definition, but so it just sounds like you're a naturalist then.
I don't see why you're coming to that conclusion.
Because it sounds like it sounds like you're comfortable saying that, yeah, you can just explain things with science.
Yes, for sure. I think that science will
science,
ultimately,
in particular physics, is a natural science, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And so if you think things are describable by a natural science ultimately, then you're a naturalist.
Well, I would say that I believe that you can be someone that believes in supernatural, but we can describe it and quantify it, and then let's not
But
call
then
it
it's not.
supernatural anymore.
But then it's not supernatural if you can describe and quantify it, and it's
Okay.
describable by physical laws. It's not supernatural.
Yeah, I think this may be semantics, because I really think I'm saying the same thing as you, but we think of supernatural in society, not me, but I think society thinks of it as this ethereal, spiritual cloud, invisible thing that you can't touch. I'm not thinking of it in that sense.
I'm just
I'm
using
just thinking of
supernatural
it-
in the sense of not describable by natural science.
Yet. It's not
No,
describable
that's
yet.
not no, it's not yet. Lightning wasn't actually supernatural ever. People were just wrong about thinking that it was.
And then once they were able to quantify it and describe it,
It didn't become natural. They just realized it was natural. It was natural the whole time. They were just wrong thinking that it was supernatural.
because they didn't understand the math and the physics right yet.
Right. But that doesn't mean it was supernatural.
I agree with you.
Okay, so that means that even if we don't understand something yet, if it will in principle be describable by physical laws at some point in the future, then it is not supernatural. That's just what supernatural means.
Okay. Well, I think God is quantifiable at some point.
Okay,
but you
then
just
you're a
can't do it
naturalist.
yet.
Sounds like you're a
Well,
naturalist.
You can call me that, but I still believe that there is a God that's separate from. But at some point, what you call supernatural and what we call physical meets. Okay. And then as we understand more natural, we can better explain a higher level of what's considered supernatural by somebody else. Okay. It becomes semantics at some point because, again, higher math, it's like, how does this way? Well, all of a sudden, invisible numbers are. When did invisible numbers become a part of equations?
Invisible
what-
numbers?
Invisible numbers.
It's not a thing.
Invisible numbers are part of equations.
They are
Who
not.
is it that came up with
You're
that?
probably thinking of imaginary numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, imaginary numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
so
that was
they
that was in
came
the
up with-
1600s.
Okay, so
Maybe
they
the
came up with.
1500s.
Okay, so I've heard even atheists say this, that, you know what, we've been using invisible things since all the way back then. So this whole argument about there's nothing out there, well, they're using imaginary stuff to
Imaginary
calculate.
numbers aren't imaginary. They're not made up. They're just as real as regular numbers.
But you can't necessarily quantify them all the way.
You literally can.
Okay. Well, that was one example that I came across, and if that's not a good example, then it doesn't discount everything else that we've discussed in this conversation. Okay. I may be wrong on that because I don't understand all this, and that's fine. But again, it doesn't discount everything that I'm trying to say, which is that I think that what people call supernatural. Okay, this is dumb. I'm going to quote Thor, the movie Thor, and I'm going to show you how dumb I am. She said that magic is just what science can't explain yet.
You know that's not
Okay.
from her, right?
Well, I think that was Natalie Portman.
She wasn't the first person to say that.
Okay, well, that's the first time I heard that quote.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, that was like, I agree with that, but it's still, I can believe that there is that, let's call it the energy source, whatever is sustaining the quote multiverse, or if there's a multiverse, the quantum. I'd love to ask you what you think about that chip that said that there's a multiverse in 5 minutes.
It was
if you
fake.
think that's BS.
It was BS,
is
yeah.
it? Yeah. Like, did they even do the test, or did they just say that they?
I think that they actually did run the test, but it doesn't have anything to do with the multiverse.
Yeah, Ahmed, I'm not basing my beliefs on Thor. If you listen to what we're saying, you'll understand that I quoted a line from Thor to illustrate a point. Okay.
Don't read the comments; they're gonna be mean to you.
Oh, I haven't read any, but I can be a troll right back. So
You just did read the comments.
this is the first one I read.
I know, and
So
I'm just
not gonna
I'm
read
just giving you a warning. Don't do it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm a troll myself. What do you think about string theory?
I'm not convinced.
What's M theory?
It's just string theory on steroids.
Okay. What do you think about some of these things like warp drives and tachyons and stuff that can go beyond like light speed? Do you think that stuff's there? Like, okay, do you
suspect
think
not.
that UAPs, the technology that UAPs are claiming that they're using, like
So
gravity
Metatron, this is
generators,
wildly off topic.
Okay, well, it's fine. That's fine. I just like to.
That's fair. Join my
I'm
Discord.
learning about that stuff now. I'm learning about warping space time with gravity, and this also fits in with, I'll get off the call now, but let me just share what I was trying to say at the beginning, was that they were talking about how these big voids in space, actually, because there's not as much mass and gravity being produced, that time is different in those.
Yes, this is timescape cosmology. I'm familiar.
Okay, so that's what I was saying at the beginning.
It's also no. I mean, well, anyway, the point is
Okay,
that that's not
term. Yeah.
It's not really well. It's not really taken seriously in the broader community because there's not really a lot of good supporting evidence for it.
Okay, so yeah, timescape cosmology. That's what I was saying. That in certain parts of the universe where galaxy clusters are going to be closer together, you consider that its own larger gravity bubble, in that time is going to operate different there. So that's where
that's at least the claim. Like it's not particularly well founded though.
Okay, well, maybe it's not well founded now, but I think that it's a.
So this is like one guy's theory, and like his 4 students.
Well, sometimes 4 students can change the world.
I mean, sure, and I'd be happy to be wrong about this, but it's almost certainly wrong, just because it doesn't really do a good job explaining the data that we have. But I'm gonna let you go, Metatron, because
what's that?
I'm gonna let you go because we should move on to another guest. But thanks for being here, bud.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Now, to everybody who's been watching, if you enjoyed that, or if you didn't, like the live anyway. If we get up to 100k likes, I'll put my hair down. And that's on TikTok. If we get up to 200 likes on YouTube, I will also put my hair down. So, keep liking that live. All right, let's bring up a very special guest while I drink some water.
Hello. As the real-life human brother of Dr. Blitz with authentic human kidneys and emotions, I am well-versed in many fields of study, such as plantology and stationaryology. Another field I could be considered a subject matter expert on is supportology, the field of study on why you should support this live on TikTok and YouTube. Hosting these lives is not his day job. His day job is being a physicsologist. He does these after work because he enjoys it, and receiving support from those watching is positive feedback that is likely to increase his enjoyment. If you wish to be a source of this positive feedback, supporting the live is the logical course of action. You can take steps towards becoming a supportologist by subscribing, sending gifts or super chats, using his Cash App, or other options like Buy Me a Coffee listed on the link tree in his bio. If you aren't able to subscribe right now, you can show your support by following the channel, liking the live, leaving comments, and sharing the live and his videos with others. Also, you can join his Discord through the link on the link tree in his bio to become a part of the community and receive notifications when he plans to go live. By joining, you can participate by suggesting new video topics and identifying new fields of study as a studyologist, not to be confused with a studologist. I hope that I was able to use my expertise as a supportologist to persuade more of you to support the live. Also, as an aside, many people question whether or not I am a real-life human being. I hope that vocal errors such as those that occurred earlier will put your mind to rest, such as like this one too. Anyways, have a great rest of your day, and again, support the live.
That was something, wasn't it? Very special guest. All right, so I'm going to bring on a guest from YouTube. I'm trying to go back and forth between the two. So, Mr. Random, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. How old are you?
Hello.
How old are you,
I'm
Mr. Random?
14 actually.
Oh, you can't be on the live then. Sorry, but it's TikTok
14.
US. Nope. Can't be here. Sorry. Gabe, how's it going? Gabe? Gabe? I know you're listening on YouTube currently. If you don't answer immediately, it's because there's a delay. I know. Alright, let's wait for Gabe. Give him a minute.
Oh, hey, what's up?
How's it going?
It's going. I
Glad
know
to
you
hear it.
just like did your brother thing, but honestly, guys, this is a cool dude. Go ahead and give him a follow.
Heyo. Yeah, do that. Yeah, like subscribe and yeah, that all that stuff. Do all that.
Yeah, for sure. So and also for anyone that's like gonna join later on, stop like talking like his degree like
No,
just
but I like
speak.
talking about science. Don't tell them not to come up. That's the fun part.
But okay, but they're never gonna convince you if like every single argument's just got out the gaps, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. All right, so then what do you got for me, Gabe?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to give you a curveball here.
All right, give me the curveball. Let's hear it.
All right, so I'm gonna try to. First off, I can't like logic your way into religion at all, even kind of, because I will grant it to you, religion normally is just illogical.
Oh, okay.
Personally, I am a kind of a messed up Roman Catholic. And
that sounds plausible. Most Roman Catholics are messed up in one way or another.
Okay, well, I mean messed up in that I like kind of just break rules.
I feel that's true about most.
I was indoctrinated into like Roman Catholicism.
Sure.
And then now long story short, I just have like a different kind of headcanon.
Yeah, okay.
But that's beside the point, because in order to like actually get you to join any sort of faith, I'm gonna have to like convince you to become religious. And I'm gonna have to do that by just logic and reason. So this is gonna be difficult, but I'll try. So
I believe in you.
I'm gonna give you an argument for religion based off of evolution.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so basically, I'm just gonna point to that all of the ancient civilizations that we know of, and just any society normally has some sort of like mythology to it, and or mythology or religion kind of combined. And the reason for that, well, because natural selection and evolution, we need to say that these things just must like provide some sort of modicum of survivability, right? Because
Sure.
otherwise you would expect it to see like societies that aren't religious, but we don't see that. So we need to ask ourselves, why does religion provide survivability? I can think of two reasons. The first one is that it must be like some sort of part of like how society forms. At least in ancient civilizations, religion
Sure.
probably had some part of like ethics and like laws, some sort of like order to said civilization. And then you can also think about this individually as well. You can think of someone that is more religious, whenever they are encountering some sort of like hard times. I would argue probably have a higher chance of survivability than someone who isn't religious.
That might be debatable, but it might not matter.
I would say it's definitely debatable. But I'm thinking on the standpoint of like, in terms of, I don't know, like hope, which is like a fickle thing.
Well,
but I remember
the only reason I'm saying that's debatable is because I imagine like somebody who's religious might be like, well, it doesn't matter if things get better here. I have an afterlife to go to. But if you don't think that there is an afterlife, then you might be more likely to try to fix what's going on now.
Yeah, see, this is part of the problem. You're getting your logic brain into it. Religion's a
I'm
logic
sorry.
brain.
I'll try to avoid it in the future.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, but so I was thinking more in the lines of I remember that there was, I forgot who did it, but I know it's been talked about online. There was the study with mice. Of course, mice always get the brunt of like horrific studies, and it was they just did one study where they popped the mice in water and just like let it. They timed like how long it would take for the mouse to drown. And then there was one mice that they just popped in water and let drown. Then there was another mice that they dropped in water and then they picked it up and then they put it back in the water and then watched how long it took to drown. And the other mouse took like hours longer to drown. And the reason that was the case is because it was originally conditioned in order it was conditioned that it was probably going to be saved. Um and so I'm bringing this up because I think that that's like a reason for hope. That's like hope we're seeing
Okay.
in that
Yeah,
mice.
I could see the argument either way. Sure.
Yeah. Now, uh, that being said, this is all about natural selection, evolution, survivability, and whatnot.
Yeah.
That does not equal truth, right? And that's
I mean, it seems to at least point to some degree of truth. Perhaps not fully accurate, but at least some degree.
yeah, not fully accurate. There probably is a pretty strong correlation. Um, maybe even a causation. Who knows? Um, but
I mean, so what you're
as
suggesting, if I'm understanding correctly, is that there might be good evolutionary reasons why people do believe. And I might even agree with that. It might have not been selective, it might be what's called a spandrel. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, it's pretty clear that most people, for most of history, have believed. So it's plausible to suggest that there's an evolutionary reason for that. But that doesn't mean that the belief itself is correct.
yes, yes. However, I would also argue that survivability and also consciousness, which I don't want to get too much in a tangent because, bro, I just watched like way too many Jordan Peterson videos. I'll be honest with you.
I'm so sorry for you. You should not do that. I wish I could save you time. I wish I could go back in time and slap your hand before you clicked on it.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It was like during the lockdowns, and I was just like listening to his lectures while I was like,
resurrection?
well,
he actually resurrect? It was the dragon. Like, fucking Kermit ass motherfucker
so
over here.
he's extremely annoying in that regard. But he is. I think that he's kind of something that is like the counter to nihilism. Um, and I say that because what he's doing is he's finding something that's completely arbitrary, like cleaning a room, and then he's aligning that with like an epic narrative, which is like, okay, I mean, you can do that. um, it's the matter of perspective, right? Because what a nihilist would do is they would say, well, all of like, the Earth is gonna like die, like everybody on Earth is gonna die due to like the sun exploding or whatever. So like, why does my life have meaning? He's like the antithesis to that type of thinking.
Yeah, he just
Um,
ends up sending people down extremist rabbit holes.
right wing rabbit holes. Yes, I completely agree, and that's also why I don't ever like the moment that he just like endorsed the Trump. To me, it was like, okay, you're like you're way too far gone.
The rest of
like
us saw it
going
coming
crazy.
like years ago.
Yeah,
Like even like in like the late 20-teens.
yeah, it's really sad how that happened because it's so hypocritical watching it today. But he also has some like really good commentary on like ideologies, and then he just like falls into an ideology. It's like, okay, guy.
Anyway, so how are you
yeah,
going to
yeah,
convince
yeah.
me to believe in this this religion of yours?
So I'm gonna argue, you have a value system,
I do.
and you're an atheist, and your study is in like very hard critical thinking. So I'm going to assume that your value system that you place on the top, the thing you place on the top, is probably truth.
I definitely do care about truth.
It's not something
I
to
don't,
not care about.
I,
Don't
I
get
don't
me
know.
wrong.
I don't know if it's at like the tippy top, but it's definitely up there.
Okay. Do you know what is at the tippy top?
No, I don't know if I don't know if there's like a well-defined hierarchy like that. Like, I mean, you know, I might say like if I could be dumb and happy, maybe I would prefer that. Like, I don't know.
Well, that's not exactly that can't necessarily be independent from truth as well. Like if you want to be like an
Maybe I
unconscious
misunderstood.
like, well,
Do
if you
you
want to be
mean
like an unconscious like being on Earth, like that's like you're able to do that. That's just like also happy.
maybe I misunderstood. When you say like, I mean, like I do value truth, but like, you know, if the option was like, you know, lie to the Gestapo to keep Anne Frank alive, or tell the truth, like I'd lie to the Gestapo, right?
Well, right. That's not necessarily. Well, the point isn't necessarily that you care about telling the truth. It's about like finding the truth, right? Like
Yeah, that is something I care about.
Trying to inspect like reality to find like commonalities and patterns and whatnot.
Yeah, that is something I care about. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to argue that as long as you're going to like have that as if you have that as like the highest thing, you're probably never going to be like religious. And I would probably say like the only reason that most people are religious is probably from ideological indoctrination, because otherwise like all of these like Christians
You're not doing a
that
very good
are
job of
not.
convincing me.
No, I know. But it's I'm able to say this, and I think it just has to be said. If everyone that you have been like talking to, if they weren't like indoctrinated into said religion, I don't think that they would be religious. I think that they're just like keeping their. I just think that they want to keep their worldview basically.
Generally, I
Because
agree
I
with
don't
you.
think that they're like have
So-
that type of like mysticism.
So hold on. So why do you still believe?
Because I do have that mysticism. I believe of supernatural duality, stuff like that. It's
Sounds like you don't.
I do. I trust me. I do. I do believe that there's a ghost in the machine. It's so the thing that I value is going to be consciousness. That's like the highest thing that I value. That doesn't mean that I don't value stuff like truth seeking. But I would argue because there's a problem. And it goes back to the point I was talking about before. The problem is, I would say, a problem is nihilism. And I don't see how somebody can, I guess, find direction or meaning or value or fulfillment in their life, who is, if they don't have like some sort of, I guess, mythological religious worldview that places like some sort of order, yeah, some sort of order in their worldview.
Why can't I just care about something?
What do you mean?
Like, I care about things. I care about, you know, the work that I do. I care about the family that I have. I care about my friends. And so I
Yeah,
find
but
value in
then
those.
but the nihilism would just say, but like, what's the point? If
The
like
point is
everything
I
else.
like them.
Yeah, but like you like them because there's just like these what, like chemicals in your brain saying that you like
Yep,
them. Like this
exactly.
is my but like that's my problem with like this type of thinking though. It invalidates all narratives. You no longer have like any like story that you're
Who
going
needs a
through.
story?
No meaning.
I can enjoy somebody's company. I can enjoy caring and looking after somebody. Those are things that I find valuable. Why do I need some grand narrative?
Well, okay, so I just you're saying that like you can just have value these things just because, right?
Yeah,
Like
they're things I
as
care
far
about.
as yeah, well, I would geez, I don't want oh, hold on.
Don't worry, unless you start doing the Elon salute, I won't be offended.
No, I just had an alarm going off. I had to
Okay,
tell
you're
my
good.
Google to shut up. So what I'm trying to get at is I don't see the point for like truth seeking. For I just don't see the point for truth seeking if there is no like conscious life at its foundation to seek for it.
But
Does
what
that
if
make
I just
sense?
care about it?
I mean, you can care about it, but in order to care about it, you have to be like conscious of it, right?
Yeah, which I am.
Yeah. Well, you want this is the other. So I would also say that if I would say that probably the more the most civilized societies of today we see I would suspect that they're have a large atheist following than like non-civilized societies.
I don't know
Um
what you mean by civilized societies, but there are atheist communities in perhaps the least expected places. I mean, famously, China is wildly atheist, right? So is
yeah,
Thailand.
but
So is the Czech Republic, which is very weird.
I don't know if that's because like the aren't isn't like the Chinese government supposed to be I heard that they treat like Catholics and whatnot very very badly. So I don't
I
know
mean,
if
probably, but it's not like you have a bunch of people who want to be Catholic over there and are afraid of it. It's just that even before communism was a thing, like the East tends to be Buddhist, and Buddhist has at least some branches that are just atheistic, like spiritual philosophies rather than theistic belief systems.
yeah, that's a weird like a gray area though because so I would say that other than morality and ethics, the other like function that religion gives is providing some sort of like order into the worldview. And I don't like these. I'm gonna you're gonna make me do it. I'm gonna fucking. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm not
You
supposed to
can
say that.
swear.
I'm done.
Don't worry, you
Okay,
can
I
swear.
can swear. I can.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. You're gonna make me like give a Jordan Peterson talking point, and it's gonna
Oh, then
sadden
I'm gonna
me.
yell at you, but you can do it first.
Okay, okay. China's government is always been very authoritative.
Have you been there?
And have I been there?
Yeah.
No. Have you?
No, I haven't.
Fair.
Do you think that
I
we
know
get?
you're saying that because I'm the one making the claim. I was
Well,
just
yeah.
genuinely
No.
curious.
Do you think that we get unbiased information about China? About the social order of
Uh,
China?
I mean, yeah, probably.
You think that we get unbiased information?
Uh, honestly, no idea.
I mean, I would just suspect, considering that it's currently the biggest, not enemy, if you will, but like the biggest contender on the world stage against Western power. I suspect that a lot of what we hear about China is probably through a very, very biased lens. This is all to say, you could be right. You could be right that they are very, very authoritarian, and they hate free speech, or you could be wrong, and neither of us would know.
Well, this was okay. Well, this was more stemming from the fact that in all other mythologies, this is Jordan Peterson. In all other mythologies, dragon is supposed to be seen as like the representation of chaos. Right, like in ancient mythologies, normally you would have like a tree, and that would be like a symbol or representation of order, and then the dragon or snake, and that'd be the chaos. You see this in like Nordic mythology. You see this in
Well, in
the
Western
Abrahamic
mythology, in Western mythology, the dragon is the symbol of chaos. But that's just not the case in like Mesoamerican mythology. It's not the case in Eastern mythology. It's not even the case in African mythology. For what little dragons they have, there's not a whole lot of dragon stuff happening in African mythology, but like you're talking about something in like the Near East and Europe is where you see chaotic, the dragon representing chaos, and that comes from Christianity.
Dragon. I want to know what dragons represent in Eastern mythology.
They generally represent like order, like the Chinese dragons.
Powerful, benevolent beings associated with good fortune, rain, and control of water and weather.
Yeah.
Unlike they're often depicted as malevolent counterparts in Western mythology. Yeah, but that so. I mean, good fortune, rain, water, and weather is still like kind of representation of chaos if you squint at it, I guess. But I mean, I do understand that they're more taken to a positive view for sure. And the point was that this positive view must be because the chaos of like the dragon is supposed to be fighting like whatever authoritarian like government that Chinese notoriously would have. Not even talking about the current regime. Geez, I'm talking about the current party, Communist Party, but also talking about like the governments before that, which was the dynasties.
But like Europe was filled with that, right?
In dynasties?
Empires and kingdoms and principalities and dynasties.
Yeah. Are you saying that they're like as authoritarian as the other?
Essentially. I mean, like obviously there's fluctuations of time, right? Like there was, in fact, famously, I think it was in the 1300s, one of the dynasties made an effort to actually get rid of slavery. They weren't very successful, but they made an effort. And then there was the Enlightenment period in Europe in this beginning in the 1700s, which was quite a flourishing of freedom. Like there's fluctuations throughout, but generally up until 300 years ago, maybe basically everyone was totalitarian. Freedom just wasn't really a thing.
You mean in like the most like? I mean, I guess I'll allow that only because I'm not like a historian, and I know that they're
like if you can. I mean, maybe the Greeks counted as being mildly free because they had some sort of weird democracy like 2,300 years ago, but like even then it was just like a few people could vote. So.
Yeah, but like there still must have been like some sort of positive aspects to like civilization, or else nobody would try to be a part of
authoritarianism is generally very successful. It's a very successful way of having an efficient society. And so people were like, who needs to have a say? The king's got it sorted. The king hasn't done wrong by us. He makes sure that we're protected. And you know, so what if he takes half our grain?
I know that we're just talking about like historically, and you're just talking about kind of like delving into the line of philosophy and hypotheticals, but I would not like to see your politics.
You wouldn't want to see it.
No, well, I mean, like, yeah, just
You're
like
an
it happened
anarcho-capitalist,
during,
aren't you?
Actually, no. I consider well, look, I'm kind of sort of like libertarian, but I actually consider myself like a social democrat.
Oh, okay, based.
Yeah, but I'm in a red state, so it doesn't matter.
That's fair. I'm in another country, so it doesn't matter.
Based. Okay, nice.
So honestly, though, Gabe, like, while it's been a pleasure, I should probably kick you because we're way off topic. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. But long story short, like, as long as you're going to like value your truth seeking higher than like something like consciousness, then I don't think that you can ever become religious.
Well, you might be right, but that means that I got to see if somebody else can convince me. Thanks for being here, Gabe. Talk to you
sounds
later.
good. Yep. See ya.
All right, let's bring on another guest. All right, remember, guys, like the live. Also, you know, I'm starting to think, like, I can't wait till I move back to the States and I can just eat a different time slot than Ian. Brother's taking up all the good guests. I'm not in a Balkan state, you fucking Andre. Eric, how's it going?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. What do you believe in?
So I mean, I was raised Christian, so I believe in a biblical God, but I mean, I kind of believe in a universal God. So I would say, like, I'm kind of a creationist.
You're a creationist. How old do you think the Earth is?
Well, okay, maybe I'm not a creationist, but basically, I believe that there has to be intelligent design behind what we perceive, like the universe.
Why?
Well, okay, so let me start with this. So you said that what you observe is the reason why you have your beliefs. So you observe everything with a consciousness, everything with a mind has, you know, is obviously is a person.
Yep.
Okay, so something that I've observed is that, you know, we see consciousness that can't comprehend what its environment is. For instance, if we look at like an animal or even like a bug, say they can't comprehend their environment, would you say it's possible that because we can't comprehend our environment, that maybe we're just misunderstanding and there is a higher intelligence that understands what we are, but we can't understand what it is, in the same way that other lower intelligence?
It's possible.
Go ahead.
But I have no evidence to support that, right? In the same, so let me give an example. Like, before somebody saw a black swan, it was rational to believe that all swans were white. That was a rational thing to believe. It turned out to be wrong. But until you have the evidence to the contrary, if all you've ever seen is a white swan, then that's a rational belief to hold.
Okay, but so what I'm saying is, if you're observing other intelligence that is unaware that higher intelligence exists right within its reality, but its consciousness doesn't give it the ability to understand the environment that it is in, then isn't it plausible that you're observing something similar to yourself?
I wouldn't say it's plausible, because plausible is an assessment of probability. I would say it's possible. Absolutely. My priors could be wrong.
Possible.
My priors could be wrong. My priors could be wrong, but until I have evidence to the contrary, why should I change my priors?
Well, we see it all around us. the other
No,
life forms that we see.
evidence to the contrary. So it's possible that that inductive reasoning could apply to us, right?
Okay.
But unless I have reason to think otherwise, I'm going to think it doesn't.
The reason is yeah, okay, I get it. It's still inductive, but I just, if I'm looking at something and I see that there's evidence that other life forms that are conscious are unaware that I exist due to my existence being outside of their realm of understanding, then I feel like that's evidence. I guess it is inductive reasoning, but it's still evidence.
Induction is
nonetheless,
fine.
Right?
It's not evidence about our experience, though, right? So, I mean, think of it this way. Suppose that there is some hierarchy, and like things lower on the hierarchy don't understand things like higher up on the hierarchy. Either the hierarchy goes on forever, but if you're a theist, then you can't hold that position. Or there's a top, right? And so, as far as I can tell, you know, we've been everywhere on Earth. Humans are certainly the top on Earth, right? We're the top of that hierarchy, if such a hierarchy even makes sense. And so the question is are we actually the top? You know, neglecting aliens, of course. Correct. But are we actually the top? Or are we just deluding ourselves into being the top? Now, we have evidence that we are the top. We look around everywhere on Earth. There's nothing that's bigger than us. There's nothing that's stronger than us that we don't understand. It's just us and then, like, animals. And so that's at least good reason to think that we are, you know, at the top of this so-called hierarchy. Now, it could be that we're wrong, that induction doesn't work. But all else being equal, why would you believe that? Why would you believe something that you have no evidence for?
So you're saying I have no evidence that there is a hierarchy?
Oh, I mean, maybe you would. But what I'm saying is given the data that we're talking about now, there's no other evidence given that, like, if you want to introduce like new arguments, that's fine. That would count as evidence. I'm just saying like given our observations about like this hierarchy that we're kind of talking about, we are at the top. And so we would need to see evidence that we're actually not at the top for this inductive reasoning to be useful.
So are you saying because you can't, if you're saying, if I were to say, like, for instance, we're so advanced that there must be something more advanced in order to create us, but are you saying that then there must be another hierarchy to that, so there must be something even more advanced to create that? Or is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I would suggest that you never make the argument that because we're so advanced, there must be something more advanced to create us, because then you end up with an infinite regress of gods. But no, I didn't think that that's what you were saying. All I'm saying is that we're either at the top or we're not, and the evidence seems to be pointing to the fact that we are at the top. Now, it could be the case that we're wrong about that. Maybe future evidence will convince us otherwise, will convince me otherwise.
Well, I feel like we can't understand. It seems like it's clear to me we can't comprehend that hierarchy. Sorry, I'm having a hard time saying that. Hierarchy. And that it's pretty evident that we can't understand I mean, from all the observations we make of the universe, we only get more and more information that shows us how limited our understanding is. Like other people have mentioned, the James Webb and stuff. If things are about to be overthrown and changed because our understanding is limited, then doesn't that show that there's a good chance that we're not seeing the bigger picture, and that hierarchy, we might not even, maybe it's not even a hierarchy, maybe it's something outside our comprehension, because human comprehension is so limited.
So the notion that our scientific models are changing is actually evidence for the opposite of the claim. Namely, if our scientific models never changed, but we still ran into things that we couldn't explain, then you might have good grounds to say something like, oh, well, there are just things that are too sophisticated for us because we can never understand this no matter how much we try, and our scientific models can't explain it ever. But that's not what's happening. Rather, what's happening is that we get new data, we get new information, and then we change the scientific models because we now understand it better. So in fact, we've never run into something that we haven't been able to figure out. There are, of course, open questions, But like, there's never been a time where we've just been like, well, we have this observation, we don't know what it means, we're not going to change anything because we can't even conceive of it. Like, that's just never happened.
Well, what about like the beginning of the universe? We don't know if there is or isn't a beginning of the universe, correct?
You're right, we don't. And this new data that we have kind of changes our view on that. We might be back in the big crunch might be back on the menu.
So then wouldn't that mean that there is some things that are outside of our understanding?
No.
Even if...
saying that our models changed because we got new data means that it's within our understanding. We just need more data.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that if the information that we're looking at is beyond our comprehension, like the start of the universe, we don't really have the language to even describe some of the things that happen in the early universe, based on the information we have. So how are we supposed to...
What do you mean by that?
...come to a conclusion? Just like we don't... Well, okay, obviously we don't know whether or not the universe has a beginning or not, correct?
Yeah, there's no consensus on that, no.
So that's outside of human comprehension. So what I'm saying is...
No, it's not. We can understand both scenarios equally well. We just don't know which one's right yet. And that's why we need more data. That's why we need to spend more money on telescopes.
What if the description of the early universe isn't a start or an end, and the language to describe it is outside of human comprehension?
Sorry, can you repeat the beginning again? I missed it.
Okay. What if the actual information, whether or not the universe began or didn't begin, it's neither, and the information that we would need to understand the early universe is outside of human comprehension?
But we do understand the early universe.
Based on our own knowledge. But what if our understanding is incorrect? Because obviously we don't know for sure whether the universe began or if it's infinite.
And what if we're all brains in vats? Like, that's just not how we conduct ourselves, right?
Okay, but doesn't that give us evidence that... Doesn't that mean that it's just as equally plausible or possible that we were created over or whether there is no God or is a God? Doesn't that mean that it's just... And why would you say that?
Just because something is possible doesn't mean it's probable or even plausible, right? The point is that, like, just, again, this is an inductive argument, but it's a fairly strong one. For roughly the last 200 years or so, we've been making a steady march towards understanding more and more. And it shows no sign of stopping. So the claim that just because we don't understand it now means that it's forever unexplainable, just based off of prior instances of people making the same claims and being wrong, leads me to believe that they will be wrong again. Because every time somebody has made that claim in the context of physics, in the last 200 years, they've been wrong. Every single time. Why would this time be any different?
And when you say claim, meaning that the information will change?
No. The claim that we just can never understand this, or this is outside of our understanding. Because science will never be able to explain X, Y, Z.
And then it does explain it.
And then it does.
But that can still be extremely limited in the broader sense of understanding the quantum nature of reality in the beginning of our universe.
Sorry, my brain turned off when you said quantum. Want to try again without saying quantum? Because otherwise it's going to I'm going to get very, very sad.
Because you're a physicist?
Yeah, and when people say quantum, they don't actually mean that at all.
I get it. I have actually done a lot of research on quantum physics, but I probably don't know near what you know as a doc. When I heard that you have a PhD, I was pretty impressed. I'll be honest.
I appreciate that.
Not to get off topic. So what you were saying is basically we were talking what's related to the hierarchy statement. So you said we would end up in an infinite regress if you were to look at it like, okay, if you look at a truck parked outside, there's a Camaro. Do you think that Camaro just all those parts just manifested themselves together?
Well, no, but that's because I know how cars work.
Okay, so then how do we end up in an infinite regress if it's obvious that to have
I didn't say that we did.
System... Okay, wait, go back. You didn't say that we did what?
I didn't say that we end up in an infinite regress. I mean, I assume that you just think that the hierarchy terminates just one higher level than us.
Well, so I mean, that would I would say that that's what I've been taught, but obviously that is, I do believe that it's extremely complex, and even being in the position of, and I feel like that's why a religion a lot of the time will, there's always a thing is we can't possibly understand it, which is an easy way to say we don't understand what's going on in the universe or what's going on with the world around us. But what I'm saying is, if you're looking at something that has design to it, and then you look at our universe or our world around us, and it looks like it has design to it as well, then why can't you make the conclusion that there obviously is some kind of intelligence to whatever led to this existence?
Well, I mean, I would first ask you, what criteria are you using to determine if something is designed?
Well, I mean, look at, like, if you take for instance, like, surgeons or doctors and stuff, when they say, when they talk about how when they've looked at the human body, a lot of them become religious because they can see the design in the nature around them.
But what's the criteria?
The criteria for something to seem like it's designed.
Yeah. Like, what's the test?
Well, I can give you an example.
I don't want an example. I want the criteria.
Okay. If something has specific parameters that are ideal for its environment, but the information couldn't have been derived from any senses that they have in the environment. For instance, and that's why I wanted to give an example.
Could you give me an example of something that's not designed?
That's not designed?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that something that isn't designed. Well, I mean, I guess if I believe in intelligent design, then I guess I can't give you something that's not designed.
What would something be like if it weren't designed? Hypothetically.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you got me with that one. I don't know how to describe that, because if I were to say, like, dirt or something, that's still made up of atoms, and those are made up of different things that obviously have certain states that never change, and I feel like that whole system is designed.
So if under your worldview there is no characteristic that makes that you could use to determine if it was designed or not, because you think that everything is designed, then it just doesn't sound like you have a criteria. It just sounds like a kind of a circular belief system.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but okay, so what would your description of not designed be then, if you don't believe that things are all have an intelligent nature, or you don't see? I just see the intelligent nature behind, the systems. They aren't random. There's numbers that have to be very specific for
we can talk about that in a minute, but let's not get off the design bit first.
All right.
So the way that I tell if something is designed is I use background knowledge about the thing that I'm thinking about. So, like, if I look at a car, I have background knowledge about what cars are. I have background knowledge about Henry Ford, automating the design of cars and stuff like this. So I can use that to infer that a car is designed, even if it's not a type of car that I've seen before. I can, think about what a car is and how this thing shares features with the thing I'm looking at. Similarly, if I see a painting, I know what painters are, and I know that painters paint paintings. So when I see a painting, I won't be surprised if somebody tells me it's designed. On the other hand, if I see a glorpy doodle, which is something I've never seen before, floating in space, I will have no idea if it's designed because I have no background knowledge about it.
Okay, so then with your limited understanding of certain things, like the way that the origin of okay, so the origin of human life and the origin of organic material, I'm sure you can probably correct me on this, but we don't know the exact origin of original organic material?
Organic material is actually quite common. In fact, we recently found it on an asteroid. We also see giant clouds of this stuff in space. I'm talking about amino acids here, which are kind of the building blocks of DNA. What isn't known is the exact mechanism by which life originally formed on Earth. That's a separate question. The amino acids were certainly here, and those can form...
That's what I meant. And
yeah.
I appreciate you getting to what I was exactly trying to say, but yeah.
Yeah, so like that I don't know. I don't know the details. However, again, I have priors, or not, perhaps our priors isn't the right word. I have, I can think about what I know about life. Life is made of like chemicals, and chemicals undergo chemical reactions, and I know that like chemicals can have really complicated chemical reactions. So it's plausible to me that life is a chemical reaction, and chemical reactions definitely happen on their own, so life could happen on its own.
But okay, yeah. The thing is, though, is that then we get back to the intelligent design behind the things that we see. So where does, like, for instance, if you have, this is the example I wanted to give you earlier. If you're looking at, something in nature that is specifically, like something that camouflages into its environment, where does it get the base information? There's obviously some kind of information transfer that is happening, whether we understand it or not. And is that not intelligence in nature?
It's just evolution.
But so you're just saying that if you throw enough stuff at a wall, you're bound to get a moth that copies its exact environment perfectly?
I mean, that's what apologists do.
But I get what you're saying, but I'm a business major, and I have to take statistics and things like that. And it's just, if you look at the numbers, the possibility seems impossible that you could have so many things happen so perfectly. It's statistically impossible.
But it's not perfect, right?
Well, in order to have just for Earth to be in the correct position to have the right amount of gravity, it's like down to like thousands of an inch that the Earth needs to be positioned.
No, I don't know why people believe this. Where did you hear that?
Is that a false statement?
Before I tell you that, where did you hear it?
I honestly do not remember. Probably somebody trying to prove the existence of God.
Yeah, the Earth is, over the course of a single year, the Earth's distance to the sun changes by over 1 million miles.
Really? That seems impossible, but I'll take your word for it since you're a doctor.
At the closest, the Earth is about 92 million miles away from the sun, and at its furthest, it's about 94 million miles away from the sun.
Okay, but does that discredit the fact that there is still a lot of things that have to be within a very specific parameter for life on Earth to exist?
I mean, kinda. There's not really any other parameters that are like super fine-tuned. In fact, the Earth isn't particularly special.
Well, then there's another argument: is then why wouldn't we see more life? Is that because
we might? So, how many places do you think we've actually looked for life?
An extremely, extremely small percentage of the observable universe, obviously.
I mean, we've only checked in 2 places. 2 other places besides Earth. The Moon and Mars. That's it. It's the only places we've checked. Like, we pointed telescopes at things, but if you're looking for bacteria, you're not going to see bacteria with a telescope.
Okay, so... Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. So we were basically talking about the evolution, the design behind things, how it looks like it looks designed, so that's what makes me think that it must be designed. So I guess what I'm saying is that we, based on my evidence that I can see, there is no way to prove that there is an intelligent design behind it. Am I wrong?
There is no way to prove that there is an intelligent design behind it?
No, that there is an intelligent design, and that's what we're observing.
Well, okay. So, if by prove you mean, debunk with 100% certainty, generally it's not really possible to do that about anything. But we can at least, we can at least reason about how likely it is, right? I mean, like, for example, it was believed prior to, the 1850s, I guess, that, like, God just made all of the animals exactly as they are, and made humans exactly as we are, and made all of the plants exactly as they are. And then Darwin and his collaborators and his colleagues come out with this idea of natural selection, and now we understand that actually the life forms present on Earth don't require intelligent design in order to exist, in order to be the way they are, right? So it seems like the intelligent design claim doesn't really make any predictions, except, sorry, let me rephrase. Anytime the intelligent design claim makes a prediction, it seems to get the answer wrong. Historically.
Because then you're looking at it and actually seeing evidence that there is reasons why, a polar bear ends up being white or something like that. Yeah, but at the same time, that's a broader, I feel like that's a broader spectrum. That's something that is, because I'm not going to argue that it does make sense if, the lighter colored polar bears or bears that were in that area that are in snow are going to get more, are going to mate more and get more food. So I understand that argument for evolution, but where there's some things that are so finely tuned, like, for instance, like camouflage and things like that. And do you believe that that's the same mechanisms and there's not a deeper mechanism involved?
I mean, consider this. If you have, I don't know, let's talk about like birds. If you have 2 birds that are both being hunted by, what hunts birds? Other birds. Okay, bad example. Well, let's talk about gazelles or something, right? You have 2 different types of gazelles. They're both prey for lions. I don't know which animals eat which animals, but they're both prey for lions. Whichever one's able to hide better is the one that's going to survive and pass on its genes. And so you have an arms race of camouflage. An evolutionary arms race.
Possibilities. I feel like there has to be some kind of transfer of information. That's just my opinion, but I understand I do understand your argument for the evolution thing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like people vastly over or underestimate how much time evolution takes. Because, we only live 80 years, right? But, a lot can change in 10,000 years, in 100,000 years, in 1,000,000 years, right?
Yeah, makes sense. So I still think that we didn't get to an end on the whole infinite regression thing. Why? How is it? So just because you don't see that something, just because everything isn't necessarily designed doesn't mean that it can be? I don't really understand that.
You rephrase the question, please.
So, like, if you're looking at, like you said, if you're looking at a Camaro, you have understanding of a Camaro, so you know why it is designed the way it is. But just because you don't have an understanding, or a limited understanding of exactly how a human body comes together, because through evolution and all the different things with DNA and things that have happened over time to lead to a human existing. Just because we can't understand that doesn't mean that it's not necessarily design. I mean, isn't that still evidence of design if you can see similarities in nature to things that we have designed, for instance?
So, just because we make boxes doesn't mean that salt crystals, which are roughly cube-shaped, are designed, right? In fact, a lot of our design is inspired from what we see in nature, not the other way around. And so it would be very unsurprising if we found ourselves designing things similar to the way that, the world naturally happens to be.
So why wouldn't everything be random, though? Why would only some things be random and then other things, like why would the atoms align in things that are crystalline in order to make them the composition that they are?
You're asking why the laws of physics are the way they are?
Well, I'm just saying, things obviously have some kind of order in order. You said
well,
chaos
there are laws
theory.
of physics.
Okay, so if we have, things that have, if we have things that are ordered, you don't see. I guess I'm losing my thought here. If we see the order in front of us, that's not evidence.
Well, some
Why
things
isn't
that
it
are designed are
completely
orderly.
random?
Some things that are not designed are orderly. I don't see why that would necessarily make us think it's one way or the other.
Right. No, and I understand, like how I understand the logic. I just think that there are some things in nature that are so complex that we can't just assume that it necessarily came together randomly.
Well, nobody thinks things came together randomly. Things come together because, laws of physics, basically.
Right, and over time, but I think that there is still, like I said, I still think that there is information that it's outside of our understanding to comprehend how certain things in nature are happening. I think there's definitely more. Maybe it's just something that we don't have that we're just not capable of understanding at this point. But I definitely think that we're limited in what we can understand about how evolution happens. I don't think it's just as straightforward as, whatever is. There would be a million butterflies in order for one to be exactly like its environment. I just think it's too perfect.
The thing is there were millions of butterflies. And the ones that didn't have good camouflage died out.
I get what you're saying, but I don't believe that it's possible that everything could be ordered in just such a way to make some things that I have observed be explainable by without there being some form of intelligence in nature. And that happens to be the biblical God, but maybe, like I said, that's because that's what the argument is. But I do understand that it's my whole thing is that I think it's a little bit outside our comprehension as humans. So that's my best explanation, but I don't think that we
do comprehend why butterflies have camouflage, right? Like, this is well explained by evolutionary biology.
Well, no, not necessarily, because where does the information come from for it to even become
natural selection? Natural selection increases information. Well, at least it can increase information. It doesn't always do that, but it can.
Right, but it doesn't have any way to know what its environment is.
It doesn't have to. It just needs to
Initially,
know
it
what
has
it just
no
needs to know what works. And if that works, if matching the environment works, which of course it would, then that's going to be the thing that's selected for.
When I see things, I can understand that. Yeah, if you're a yellow butterfly in a yellow environment, then you'll probably won't get eaten by as many whatever is going to eat you. But at the same time, when you're looking at something that's so perfectly perfect, I think that it's obvious that there's an underlying mechanism that we can't understand. At least that's my personal opinion.
So name an example of some evolutionary thing that isn't understandable.
Well, like,
or of some biological thing, some feature.
Okay, just like I was saying, like just colors, for instance, just the color of a.
But you just explained where it comes from.
But where does it initially come from?
Random mutation.
So again, we're back to it's just random. But
no,
I feel
evolution is not just random mutation. The trick is that evolution has two parts. There's mutation, and then there's selection. So think of it this way. Imagine that you had like a strainer that had holes of a certain size, right? And you were trying, and let's say that you gathered a whole bunch of different rocks, right? You just grabbed a bunch of rocks from the dirt out in the desert or whatever, and you just dumped them into your strainer, and then you collected what came out at the bottom, right? Now, if somebody just looked at the stuff that came out at the bottom, they'd be like, how did you select for all of that? How did you select for all of those tiny rocks? What happened to the big rocks? The big pieces of dirt? And you'd say, well, I had a strainer. You don't need to. There's no design happening here. I didn't pick out the rocks one by one. I just strained them. And so in case it's not clear, because I actually don't think it was a very good analogy, the point I'm getting at is that the rocks in this example that you pick up randomly from the ground, that's the random mutation. And then natural selection filters out the bad stuff. And if you have enough random mutation, you'll eventually stumble on something that doesn't get filtered out, and that thing survives.
But even in like early life and what we know of evolution in early life, the chances of anything surviving is almost none.
Why?
Because of the harsh well think about about like, I'm sure you know about biology and like the early mechanisms for life, whether that be plant life or animal life. It all stems from different DNA and different. It was extremely hard for all that stuff to form over time, obviously, right? Just like you were just saying with the strainer, you had to have a lot of things die off. So what I'm saying is the complexity to lead up to even having a butterfly is the process. I don't think that you could just have that be random and have it, like you're saying, a strainer, you'd have all the perfect size rocks, but that seems too simplistic for what I'm explaining. This is like the building blocks for life. How could they have formed randomly? Or not just randomly, but even with a selective system, you believe that it's possible to have that complex of a system arise from a random selective system?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, think about this. Like, we do this. We mimic this in in algorithms, right? There's something called an evolutionary algorithm where you can find optimal solutions to problems that are otherwise very, very hard to find solutions for, by basically sprinkling random data points everywhere and then just filtering out the bad ones.
Okay, so what do you think there's nothing There's no kind of force or anything behind the universe doing this. It just happens.
Well, yeah, survival is a good mechanism for filtering. Also, my stream is lagging super hard.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Everyone's saying lagging. It's because we're probably having a good conversation and now it's gonna lag.
Yeah, it's not even YouTube. Is it lagging on your end? Because I don't think it's lagging on the YouTube end. I think it's just TikTok.
We can always continue the convo later, bro. I followed you.
Okay. Yeah, no. It looks like it's just TikTok, so I might end the live here. Yeah, but thanks for being here, Eric. I'm gonna end the live, but I appreciate you being here and engaging in good faith.
Yeah, good talk. Have a good one.
Take care.
Later.
All right, y'all. I am gonna end the live because it looks like it's lagging hard, at least on TikTok, and it's close to my bedtime anyway. I'd be getting off in 10 minutes anyway. So thanks all for joining. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. There will be a very, very special stream tomorrow. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It will not be the usual stream, I promise. So, if you want to follow me, make sure to do so. Follow on TikTok, subscribe on YouTube, join the Discord. If you want to support me, you guys know how. It's in the doobly-doo. It's in the, it's in the link tree in my bio. And I'll see you guys next time. Make sure to tune in for tomorrow